steps up, now will throw it for Monangai, and it's incomplete. Oh, it's tipped, it's intercepted. It was tipped into the hands of Hancock, and Hancock along the near sideline. He's got a blocker. One and the beat, flags come flying in, and Hancock is into the end zone. Right now, touchdown, Ohio State.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
From the 19-yard line, right hash going left to right. Man in motion on the edge. Here's a pass, and it's intercepted. That's Kareni Reed, and he takes it to the house on the first play of the game. 21 yards, a pick six for Kareni Reed in Utah.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Rattler on 3rd and 8. Furman brings pressure, hit as he throws. Jump ball! What a catch! Xavier Legette! He is him!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Missouri still trying to get set from the end zone. Cook throws one, and it's intercepted! House call for Major Burns! And LSU is going to escape Columbia with a win!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Henderson in motion, looking to throw. Complete! Touchdown! Jared Wiley, the tight end!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Milroy steps up in the pocket. He's going to take off with it, and he's getting the first down and a lot more. This is what he can do. Milroy might have scored.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome into 365 Sports. The Smokes are out this week at a family event in Florida, so I will be taking you through all week. Today, my surprise super secret guest co-host is none other than the lovely and talented Garrett Ross.
Yes, sir.
Who sits across from me, and you'll get to see him straight on because we have producer Cam and the box cam now. Tomorrow we'll have Josh Neighbors with me for 3 hours. On Wednesday, Levi Caraway is going to be here, who is one of our guys, and I really want to have him on set for 3 hours. I think he's more talented than he gives himself credit for, and he's a very opinionated human being. So we'll have Levi Caraway here, Jack is here, Embry is here, and on Thursday, Trey Elling, who covers the Longhorns and does a lot of radio down in Austin, is going to be up here. You'll really like Trey. Even if you don't like the Longhorns, you'll like Trey. Trey's really good, really smart, really fun guy to talk to. So he'll be here. Of course, we'll have our regular, we'll have guest segments throughout every single day. Justin Williams from The Athletic joins us today. Taylor McHargue joins us today. Mike Craven joins us today. And RJ Ochoa will talk a little Cowboys with me on a day of a little bit of tragedy, not a little bit of tragedy, but a big tragedy in the history of the Cowboys, and that the loss of Larry Allen, who was on vacation, 52 years old, with his family in Mexico, and passed away. And we'll talk about him in just a little bit, and his effect on the NFL. He's a small college player, kind of really, kind of tells the story of what you can be, if you're talented and if you have a work ethic in football. But first off, Garrett, let's jump into this. A realignment related story here. It's tangential to realignment in that the Alamo Bowl, who was a Pac-12 versus Big 12 bowl game, now that doesn't really exist. They technically could still be affiliated with Oregon State or Wazoo, but they wanted to be allowed to choose Texas or Oklahoma for its bowl games in 2024 and 2025. And according to Brett McMurphy, who was just on the show last week. That has been denied. They have 2 years left on the contract with the Big 12 and Pac-12 and wanted to be able to select them for the next 2 seasons. The 10 schools leaving the Pac-12 legacy members would still play in Pac-12 affiliated bowl games and not bowl tie-ins with their new conference for the next 2 seasons. And while that's not all that attractive to the Alamo Bowl they're going to get there's a very good chance that they would get a rematch in that regard, unless it's one of the teams that went to the ACC or the Big Ten. So they don't really want a rematch. They'd like to see something. Plus, if it's Big 12 versus Texas or Oklahoma, that is something the 2 years after they left the league that would be super attractive for them to get, but that's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, also, like, Texas and Oklahoma would have to lose a lot of games to find themselves in the Alamo Bowl. So the likelihood of them ending up there, I don't think is very – I don't think it's going to happen for the foreseeable future. Now, as far as if you're the Alamo Bowl and you're looking for geography, yeah, definitely if you could – figure out a way to make this, like Jack and I were talking about earlier, and he brought up a good point. Like, if you look at the Texas Bowl, it's SEC and the Big 12 going at it. It makes a lot of sense and everything. And you could kind of play that off with the Alamo Bowl, and I think it would make a lot of sense as well. I think it would be good for both conferences. I don't know at the end of the day what they're going to do to decide who takes the Pac-12's place. But if geography means anything, which it really doesn't anymore, I think making that an SEC Big 10 or Big 12 matchup in the future would be best for everybody.
Yeah, and so I guess we'll see what they do. I mean, there's going to be a lot of bowl game deck shuffling coming up here, and one of the things the bowls have to do, and this I hope this ties in with the settlement, is let's figure out a way to make these fun again, because they're not going to go anywhere without a fight, because they do. Raise money for the communities that have, well, apparently, it depends on what you're talking about. Bowl games can be a grift and have been a grift in the past. I'll tell you, the BCS bowl games, by and large, the Fiesta Sugar and Orange, if you'll remember a few years ago, the Fiesta got threatened with taking away their BCS status because there was a lot of
money.
A little, political, kickbacks and things going on, and they got caught for it. So the powers that be in college football we don't want to be seen to do with this. And the Fiesta Bowl goes, look, if, you want to, punish people for kickbacks, we totally understand. But we would like to see everybody else's thing too. And the Sugar and Orange Bowl in particular in Miami and New Orleans, two of the more, greasy palmed towns in America.
Especially
like the only
New Orleans,
New Orleans, Miami, and Chicago. Like there's stuff going on.
Yeah.
And so the Miami and New Orleans whoa. Look, everybody makes mistakes. Let's not get I'm not even getting to Dallas or Atlanta, but like Miami and New Orleans in particular, like, hey. Oh.
To me, you've got to make it interesting. Like, I think the Pop-Tarts Bowl nailed it last year. Duke's Mayo does its thing. Like, you're going to have to get quirky with it. I think you're going to have to find, you brought this up plenty of times, but incentivize it. Like, you're going to have to make it to where the players want to play in it. I don't think, even if you do that or you offer NIL money, you're still going to have people opt out. I think it will lessen that blow a little bit. But to me, all right, last year I wanted to go because I've never been to the Cotton Bowl, and I was excited. I thought, okay, hell yeah, dude, Ohio State and Missouri are going to play. But, that really – by the time the games got in there, half the people are checked out. It just sucks for everybody right now, the way bowl games are handled. Hopefully you can fix it. I don't know what the end game is with that. I kind of lose interest if it's not necessarily a big matchup personally, but you're going to have to get around that, and you're going to have to figure out a way to do it. I don't know how to do that, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out a way to fix it. By the way, Justin R., $10 super chat. You want to make bowl games more fun? Do a Selection Sunday type of show where you put all the non-playoff teams in one of those bingo drums and draw teams at random.
Hey, I'd be
then
down
the
for
cities
that.
have the bid on the games. There's probably no bad ideas in this. They've got to figure out something to make them better, because the story of the Alamo Bowl is about to get told in different versions about 15 more times.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the way that these things and bowl agreements are going to shake out. And then we watched 2 years of the 12-team playoff. There's going to be a lot of bowls that now are going to be further down the list because they're eliminated for home site playoff games. I also think that home site playoff games are going to expand further down the line.
Oh, they will.
Because even though the top 4 teams will get a first-round bye, you're not going to tell me that Michigan is going to watch, say SMU makes the playoff of the ACC and gets a home playoff game. All right, just hypothetically.
No, I got
that
you.
They're not going to look at a 50,000 seat SMU stadium rocking and thrilled, or Kansas State, smaller stadiums than the Big House, and they haven't had that home playoff game. They're like, well, we should get a home playoff game, and then you eliminate even the need for some of those BCS games as too, or the used to be called the New Year's Six.
Yeah.
But you eliminate those games as well. College football's postseason is coming for the bowl games, whether the bowl games like it or not. So they'd be smart to come up with a plan now that when those agreements, are out of date, that they can make something happen and still have them. Otherwise, they've been getting more and more irrelevant because of the opt-outs.
Yeah.
See Orange Bowl 2000 this year. See a lot of games, but there's a less and less relevant because of those opt-outs. They're going to have to find something else to do down the line to make themselves relevant, or they'll all go away.
This is probably a shot in the dark, and a lot of people will blow back on this and they won't like it. But what I have thought about, because it's to me, with what's happening right now with the split, it's going. But as far as G5 and Power 4, where you're already there's talks about the rankings and everything. To me, if you could make it to where the bowl games were used as host sites for a G5 playoff, and that way you could have the games actually mean something, because you want everybody in fighting for a chance to continue going for a championship. Maybe that, and you could incentivize it around that. Maybe that would work, but I know a lot of the G5 schools aren't going to go for that because they're already feeling like they're getting left behind anyway. But to me, that would kind of get ahead of what's inevitable, because y'all are going to break up, whether it's now or it's a decade from now.
Yeah, they've got to get out in front of it. All right, so the solution for the Pac-12 bowls, which was what I believe we did go over last month. If we did not go over it again, just to put a period on this story for the day, the solution is it allows the Pac-12 bowls, which are the Alamo, the Holiday, the Las Vegas, Sun, Los Angeles, Independence, and an ESPN Bowl event, which is, I think, the new one or the newer one that they'll name here in a couple months, to select either Pac-12 legacy members or the Pac-2, Oregon State and Wazoo. And that keeps Oregon, UCLA, USC, Washington, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, Cal, and Stanford for participating in their respective new conference bowl games until 2026, which is still, those are good name schools if they get in bowl games for everybody else. And then after the 12-team playoff field is selected, the Alamo Bowl gets the first selection from the Pac-12 legacy members or the Pac-12, then Holiday, Las Vegas, Sun, LA, and Independence Bowls.
So what if a handful of those teams don't have the record to make a bowl game?
Yeah, then
where do you go?
Then they go to their plan B of filling things in.
Right.
So that's enough teams where you would think that they would. But because of the 12-team playoff, the records that used to be the Alamo Bowl probably won't be there anymore. Because the Alamo Bowl could, quite often get the 12th ranked team in the country. If it fell that way, or someone in the top 15. Now they probably will, but it's not going to be. They're not going to get a random 10-2 team in there, or a 9-3 team in most years from those leagues, and that's where the ever-changing landscape of college football, goes. So again, they've got to try to find a way to make bowl games different and good, and NIL games. Look, college basketball's already figured it out.
Yeah,
they've already figured it out.
In Vegas, yeah.
So I have a feeling eventually Maui Gym and all those other ones will be NIL tournaments too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Just because it's a way for, guys to, they're going to play in them no matter what, but just make teams easily get excited for them and, share some of the wealth there. So I think that's all coming. Baylor's played in South Dakota 2 years in a row at the Pentagon. They had that game that they did in Detroit this year was another one of those. So they'll still continue to have those. Teams will still do those in basketball. So football needs to find a way to do it as well. I would assume that also down the line, if bowl games start to drift away, you might see. And I'm not in love with the idea of early season off-site games. I think it's fine once in a while.
It's ran its course.
But yeah, it's run its course. So if you moved a lot of these bowl games to the beginning of the year, then it would raise that up a little bit more. But I don't know. It could be a nice compromise. I don't know. But again, there's no bad ideas in this. It's just that. And the Alamo Bowl, I've covered it. I've been to it. It's a fun bowl. It's a good bowl. It's usually a good game. It's usually, it's usually between two teams on the way up, or a team on the way up and a team on the way down. So they're kind of meeting in the middle. They're usually pretty darn good games.
Year, I mean, you had Oklahoma and Arizona kind of meeting in the middle on the trajectory where they were.
Yeah, exactly. So it is funny to me that all the rules apply to the other conferences about keeping their old bowl affiliations, except the SEC. The SEC, the Big Ten's new teams have to go to the old bowls, and the ACCs and the Big 12, but the SEC's new teams, no.
It's different.
Premier Sankey has made sure that that's not going to happen. Again, the rules apply to everybody but us.
Yes.
These things.
The American way.
So I don't blame the Alamo Bowl for going, the fuck? Come on now.
Exactly.
So we can't pick, especially Texas is probably not going to be in it next year. I would think
no.
If everything goes according to plan. Oklahoma, though, I think is in the water.
They could. I mean, especially with Jackson Arnold trying to find his feet. I think he's going to be pretty good this year. There's going to be a learning curve, but they still have some unanswered, some more questions about them than Texas does for at least a couple of years.
Yeah. By the way, we talked about this for a lot longer than I thought we would. But
no. It was fun.
Okay. Here's a list from Brett McMurphy of the NBC preferred primetime lineup games. And Iowa at Minnesota, that's a big-time rivalry. Is that Floyd of Rosedale? Is that what that one is? Is there a trophy for that one?
I think that's a pig one.
Yeah. That's not Iowa and well, anyway. But that's a big-time rivalry. Illinois at Penn State. Illinois is a team that a lot of people are talking about, might be kind of under the radar. But, they want a Penn State game, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Michigan at Washington is one that they have. That should be really good considering it was the national championship game last year, and it's going to be in primetime on NBC. Ohio State at Oregon the very next week. Holy cow. On October 12th, if you have the nerve to bother me, don't.
Exactly.
Just don't.
Just leave me alone.
I don't know what other games are on that day off the top of my head, but I know that at least one screen on my television, is going to be that. Iowa at Michigan State. They get Iowa a couple times. Penn State and Wisconsin. That one I think should be interesting, especially I think Wisconsin might be a little bit year two under Fickell.
Yeah, I'm still nervous with Tyler Van Dyke. I feel like it's maybe a step up above Tanner Mordecai. They're about the same, but Tyler
I don't know. If Tanner had been healthy all year, that's maybe a different story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Then they get a Pac-12 matchup, USC at Washington. This one we knew that they were going to have the whole time is FSU at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
there's no way that game was not going to be in prime time on NBC. And that's that's not Big Ten at all. No. So, and again, if you call me on November 9th, I will not answer. I won't. I will be holding on to my chair like this.
As Riley Leonard comes to that revenge game.
Oh, I know. That's the first thing I thought when he transferred to Notre Dame. Wasn't like, oh, good for Riley, good for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
That should be fun. He'll fit in with that offense. That offense. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, he's coming. He's coming for you.
I'm sure he just gets up in the morning and does bench presses with a picture of Chief Osceola on the ceiling. It's just runs up or old school Rocky IV, runs up a mountain. It's like, Norvell! Just yelling. I don't know. Oh, God. Oregon, Washington, they get it, or Oregon, Wisconsin should be another interesting one. They get USC at UCLA, so big-time rivalry game towards the end of the year, and then Oregon at Washington at the end of the year. So
this one's wrong, though. So Softy, our buddy Softy, I saw him correct this.
Yeah.
This is going to be Washington at Oregon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
Washington
that's
at
flipping.
Oregon.
That was going to flip.
So, Washington, Oregon. Either way, they get that game and I'm sure they're thrilled about it. So really going to be a nice primetime schedule there for NBC. All right, this is going to take a second, Garrett. So the College Football Hall of Fame has announced its class. Nick Saban and Urban Meyer are the kind of the highlights of it, the biggest names. So they're on the list for coaches. Larry Coker's on the list for coaches. Let me go through the coaches first because there's far less of them.
I initially, when I saw Saban, I was like, well, duh, he's going to be there. But with being so soon, I had to go and read the fine details. And if you were retired and you're over 70, then you can qualify without having to wait. So that's why Saban's on here without having to wait some time period to be on, like you see with Urban Meyer.
Yeah. Larry Blankeny, who was at Troy, is the all-time winningest coach in Sun Belt history. Jim Carlin from West Virginia, Texas Tech, and South Carolina. 8 teams to bowl games, 13 winning seasons. Pete Cawthorn from Austin College. He's back in the day. I don't expect anything people know anything about Pete Cawthon, who was at Texas Tech, unless you're Kim Coulter. I'm sure.
Oh, Kim
Coulter probably has
like
100 Pete Cawthon stories. Not saying you're alive in 1930 to 40, Kim. I'm just saying that as a Texas Tech alum, you're well aware of who he is. Larry Coker, who won a natty, the last natty at Miami.
He started the program at UTSA, right?
Yeah, and he started the program at UTSA. And it'll be interesting to see what they say about Larry Coker. 60-15, 35-3 in his first 3 seasons with those just insane.
Yeah, they were loaded.
Butch Davis was the coach right before him. So he and Butch Davis constructed the best roster in the history of college football.
Not even close.
And I think that's Hall of Fame worthy in and of itself. Ralph Friedgen, who is the best coach Maryland's ever had in football. Urban Meyer, Darryl Rogers, Nick Saban, and Tommy Tuberville is on this list. But come on, let's be real here. He was a very average coach at his peak.
I wouldn't put him on there just for how he left Lubbock and standing the kid up at the middle. That has always rubbed me the wrong way.
That's not Hall of Famer stuff.
That bothers the hell out of me.
That's not Hall of Famer stuff. I also feel there's probably enough political division in this country where enough of the voters would be like, no, I'm not doing that. But he was an average head coach at best over his career. He's a
What are your thoughts on Manti Te'o?
I think he's a Hall of Famer. I do. He was one of the best players in college football when he was there. He was a Heisman Trophy candidate when he was, he obviously lost to Johnny Football. So
I'm still on the fence with that one. He was good. He was really good, but I'm struggling to say Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That's just me, though.
But this is a good list. I mean, we're kind of running. I can't go through, there's so many players. Michael Vick's on the list.
How's he not in already?
I don't know. Alex Brown, who was at Florida, was a monster. Rocky Kalmus, Mark Carrier, Kijana Carter, whose NFL career was nothing to talk about, but he was still the best running back in the country. Matt Cavanaugh, Pitt, Dallas Clark, Brad Culpepper from Florida, Kenneth Davis from TCU, just down the road from Temple, Aaron Donald. Speaking of Larry Coker, the quarterback of that team was one Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey's on this list, and absolutely, he was the worst player on the team, and I'm just saying that because he was, but he wasn't bad. He was still an unbelievable college quarterback, but he was certainly, and I think he would tell you this, the least athletic person on that team.
Oh, without a doubt. He's like Brad Johnson when he went to the Bucs and won that, because you had all the around you.
Yeah.
It was almost the exact same thing on the college level.
Ken Dorsey in 2001, I think, got sacked 6 times. And I'm sure 5 of them he thought, well, that was against the rules.
Yeah.
What do you mean he can just tackle me?
Can't touch me.
Since when has that been a rule? This guy can just tackle me? No. I don't believe in that. DJ Dozier, we just had him on the show at the Super Bowl. Alan Faneca, Willie Galt, Byron Hanspard, Graham Harrell, both from Tech, Marvin Harrison Sr., Josh Heupel, Ironhead Hayward, Michael Huff. I mean, I'm saying a lot of these names. The most important two to me would be Sebastian Janikowski and Peter Warwick. They're on the list. So a lot of guys. Ryan Leaf on the list. Marshawn Lynch is on the list. So they're not all getting in, but Flozell Adams on the list. All right, Garrett, let's throw up the odds to win the national championship now.
It's not it. Hang on here. Boom.
There we go. The odds to win the national championship, and you said this to me earlier. I got to put up on my screen. Or did you? Did you email this to me? What'd you do?
I believe I emailed it to you.
Okay.
So right now you got Georgia at plus 300, Ohio State plus 425, Texas 7 plus 700, Oregon plus 850, Bama plus 1300. That's your top five. I don't think there's really any surprise in there. Then going to round out the 10, you got Ole Miss at plus 1,500, LSU plus 1,700, Florida State plus 2,500, along with Notre Dame and Penn State as well. So that's your top 10 right there. I'll tell you, suspects.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of the top 10, except for maybe Penn State a little bit. Like, I need to see a little bit more from them. Like, they're going to have to beat Michigan or Ohio State, like a team that's good, like a team that's good. Like, they're going 10-2 and 9-3, and their 2 and 3 losses are all to the teams that are right ahead of them.
Right, yeah.
So they've got to start beating, like, they've got to start taking that leap and being better than those teams.
Maybe their schedule will help now that they're not stuck, in that one conference or the one division.
Maybe so.
I don't see Notre Dame winning it. I don't see Florida State winning it.
I don't either.
I don't see LSU winning it. Like, to me, if I'm looking, like, realistically, I would say the top 4. And if I had to throw a wild card in there, I might put Bama, but I don't even trust them. I think they've lost to me, you can't lose the greatest coach ever and then just expect things to go.
I'll buy Ole Miss over Bama this year, just given what the depth on the roster looks like.
If you can't do it this year with Lane Kiffin, then when are you going to do it?
Exactly. But Clemson just on the outside of the top 10. Miami, Michigan, Tennessee, A&M's too high. USC too high with the quarterback questions. Utah too high. I just think that a lot of these are going to be tough. But you're looking at the top the top four. Like that's probably who we're going to see. But we'll see how it goes. Down the line. And this is from the Circa Sports app. Their odds to win the national title in Wyoming is the longest. Wyoming, Virginia, Wake Forest, Western Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Utah State, UTEP. There's a bunch of them, but those are all the longest shots to win the national title. And all right, one more thing before we take a break and go to Justin Williams. Rest in peace to Larry Allen, one of my favorite football players of all time. Died far too young at age 52. And this is the statement from the Cowboys. If you want to read it, while I was on vacation with his family in Mexico, NFL All-Decade team in the 90s and 2000s, 12 seasons with the Cowboys, 2 with the 49ers at the end of his career. 700-pound bench press, was the strongest guy in the league, was one of the greatest offensive linemen who ever played, and I have no problem saying he is the greatest offensive lineman who's ever played for the Cowboys or will ever play for the Cowboys. And all the guys who played with him would tell me that. All the guys who played before and after would tell me that. And I've asked a lot of them, and that includes the great Rayfield Wright and Zach Martin and Travis, like all the guys you think of over the years. They would all say Larry Allen was the best. I saw a bunch of stuff from like Emmitt Smith was torn. Like all these guys are torn up about it.
Yeah,
Troy Aikman owes him his Hall of Fame. Like a lot of that. Like because he kept Troy Aikman clean for his entire career, and he was so athletic for being so big, and He was such a great player. He was very quiet. Of the 90s Cowboys, I have interviewed pretty much everybody that you would say mattered on that roster. Multiple times.
Right.
Save for Aikman's maybe just twice. But Michael Irvin several times, Emmitt Smith several times, Novacek a bunch. Nate Newton's been on our show 400 times. Chad Headings, Leon Lett, Charles Haley a bunch, Ken Norton, lots of those players. Everybody in the defensive backfield, Deion, all of them. The only one I never did was Larry Allen, because that's not really his thing at all. He's the strong, silent type for sure, was painfully shy, and, he played at Butte College, the same JUCO that Aaron Rodgers did, then transferred to D2 Sonoma State, and he was a Jimmy Johnson find in the draft. And so I think he's the best maybe ever to play in the NFL at his position, and just so tragic to die at the very young age of 52. And the greatest player probably in Sonoma State history. I don't know, he's certainly the most well-known. And rest in peace to Larry Allen, and our thoughts to his family who have lost him far too soon at the age of 52. When we come back, Justin Williams of The Athletic is going to talk Big 12 meetings with us. This is 365 Sports.
It's the season to rev up your drive with Alan Samuels with the new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Your ultimate destination for unbeatable deals and top-notch service. Looking for a reliable ride to conquer these beautiful spring days? Look no further. The powerful trucks and sleek sedans are the perfect SUV. We've got the perfect vehicle to match your style and budget. Over 300 new vehicles to choose from. Now's the time to make your move. Enjoy special discounts, low financing rates, and incredible incentives. But hurry, these offers won't last forever. Alan Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Casasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then in Invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Casasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. Justin Williams of The Athletic joins us now. Real quick, a baseball update. Florida leads Oklahoma State 3-1 in the bottom of the fourth in regional play in the elimination game here. And Oklahoma State, get with the program here. Let's just do what's right and beat the Gators, and everybody's happy. Everybody's happy when that happens, except for Gainesville, Florida. And we don't care if they're happy. But Justin Williams joins us now. Justin, you were at the Big 12 meetings last week, and revenue growth was the topic. I thought it was funny that so many people reacted with Brett Yormark saying open for business. Oh, who's he going to get? But then, later on, I believe it was you that asked him about that in particular, where he's like, no. I wasn't talking about expansion. I was talking about like actual business.
Yeah, he did. He did bring up the open for business line once again, and you are correct. So it wasn't me. Someone else asked, "Oh, does that mean you're, purposely pursuing expansion opportunities?" And Yormark assured all of us there in attendance that was not the case. He was not looking to add new schools. I don't think you can ever take that off the table anymore in college sports. But I think he was just trying to reiterate that for the Big 12, he's all about growth and maximizing revenues. That was a term you heard a lot if you were talking to people who were at those meetings last week. And then he even talked about on Friday, I think he called it value creation, was kind of the main priority for the conference going forward. So I think open for business, at least now for Brett Yormark, means what it, maybe its most literal interpretation as opposed to the expansion realignment that it kind of became to reference earlier.
When we talked to him at the Big 12 Pro Day at the Star at the end of March, he's bullish on their growth and the way that they're doubling down on some things and, trying to find more growth avenues for basketball. And, but the, Mac Rhodes told us, just a couple weeks ago that the focus has to be on football and everybody being good in football, competitive in football, winning, getting in the college football playoff, winning in the college football playoff, and so on. What can they do to ensure that they are competitive with that? Because it was a little bit vague to me, his answers on, well, how do you keep pace with the SEC and Big Ten, given that now you have revenue sharing and all this other stuff coming down the line?
Yeah, he didn't necessarily give a bunch of specifics on that front either. One thing he did say that was interesting is, he talked about the Big 12 put forward this new vision statement, and it was to be the most relevant conference, in college sports. And so we brought up the fact of all right, Big Ten, SEC, there's clearly a financial gap there, right? And his point was relevance doesn't always equal money. I think most of us would argue it tends to. It certainly seems to right now the way the Big Ten and the SEC are kind of functioning. But I think his point was that just because those schools might be making more money from their revenue deals from the CFP, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be more relevant. And I think part of that, which he brought up, and Linda Livingstone, the president of Baylor, who's the chief of the board, they talked about the potential parity and competitiveness, specifically from football, that the Big 12 is kind of looking at this year. And we've talked about this, and I've heard about this, and a lot of people have. It could be a really deep conference and a very competitive conference race. And I think they're going to try and push that a lot in terms of, yeah, maybe the SEC and Big Ten have these teams at the top, but then there's so many other teams that just seem to not even have a chance before the year even begins. I think the Big 12 is really going to lean into being the most competitive and parity-fueled conference. Now, how does that translate to dollars? I'm not totally sure. I think they kind of view as all right, if we can position the Big 12 as this type of conference, and then we can kind of double down on that from a narrative and marketing perspective, all we're going to see is any avenue to revenue, whether that's localized on campus for universities in terms of sponsorships or branding or whatever they can do, or if it's just the Big 12 at large as a conference, whether that means basketball, whether that's the Big 12 Mexico, whether that's just finding little things like the pro day where they can kind of keep the Big 12 front of mind or try and push a separate event. I think they're really going to lean into that. And these are all things that, Brett Yormark's very familiar with from his past in NASCAR and the NBA and Rock Nation and things like that. So I think you're seeing him really lean into those things that he's very comfortable with.
He also was not too shy about, there's a lot of pearl clutching about private equity or private capital. He didn't seem to rule that out or say, he said it was kind of a good thing and a compliment. Now, he didn't say definitely that the Big 12 should do it or would do it, but he did not slam the door in any way or say anything negative about it.
No, and this was what I thought was one of the more interesting things about his comments on Friday is, he talked about that private equity being interested in college sports. He seems that as like a validation of the value of college sports and kind of the direction it's going from a financial, economical, cultural model. And yeah, he didn't give any specifics, but he said, I don't view the interest from private equity as a bad thing, which is interesting to juxtapose with, earlier that week, Greg Sankey at SEC spring meetings gets up on a podium and compares it to Red Lobster and talks about, we don't want the same thing that happened in some of these private equity businesses to happen to college sports. Brett Yormark going the other direction. I think it's, part of that, again, as we talked about, how is the Big 12 going to narrow that gap between the SEC and the Big 12? Well, there's a, potential avenue right there, and he certainly didn't shut it down. But he also talked about, again, he worked in the NBA and private equity has gotten involved there. I think he's worked in other areas of business that private equity has gotten involved. Look, there are tons of horror stories and there's tons of trepidation out there about private equity and what that means if college sports gets into that. But I did think it was interesting that when he had a chance to kind of shut it down or even just say, that's not something we're looking at or focused on, while he didn't lay out specifics, he certainly didn't run and hide from it. And that was kind of telling, I thought.
Yeah, they're, reading the column that Ross Dellinger wrote last week about it, about Redbird and all of that. Look, if Florida State is considering it to get out of there, and they're a much bigger brand than any football brand in the Big 12 by a long shot, and nobody said anything about Clemson, but I would assume that they probably wouldn't be far off in considering it as well. Then what's to stop a school like TCU or Baylor or Oklahoma State from considering it?
Yeah, and it's for something that, different very situation. Whereas if someone can path, I think it's in Ross. Sometimes the people may and might not be around when the bill comes to, whether it's an athletic director that moves to another job, or certainly you talk about head football coaches. I've seen university presidents don't like to talk as much. Unfortunately, don't like to talk as much as maybe athletic directors and college football coaches. They're the ones, though, that I think are really going to have to be the ones to sign off on this. And we haven't gotten a sense yet, if there's a university president that's really kind of ready to be the first one to throw their hat into this ring. It's probably going to happen, right? I'm going to be shocked if we get a few years down the road and someone hasn't kind of dipped their toe in those waters, but we haven't gotten there yet. And so because of that, it's kind of hard to say, all right, how will the culture shift in this sense? Will there be a bunch of teams that go that route? Will there be some horror stories? But I think outside of college sports, and we see this on any article you read about it, or if you just go on social media, there is a area of private equity or private capital, however you want to put it. And it'll be interesting to see if someone on college sports is kind of ready to go against that tide at some point.
Hey, Justin, you broke up there. I'm flying solo today. I'm going to hang up. Can you call me right back and we'll get you right back on? Yeah, thanks. All right. Good deal. All right. There we go. So anyway, but I think that, I'll have him kind of restate that, but clearly, and Emery, you'll have to edit this part out of the video. But clearly there's going to be, some, there's going to be people interested. And I think that he can't, and he's probably already heard from some people who might be interested in that. So let's see if we can get him here.
Hello.
Oh, there we go. All right. But yeah,
sorry about that.
Yeah, Justin, I think here's the other thing to kind of follow up on, you broke up a little bit in that, but to kind of follow up on the private equity question, I'm I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that some of the schools that Redbird has met with secretly live in the Big 12, and that some of those schools, after meeting with Redbird, have gone out and said, like, called Brett Yormark and go, hey, what do you think about this? So him shutting the door on it would probably be counterproductive to what the Big 12 is trying to accomplish, at least, capital-wise. And, if he's got, of the 16 teams, if 7 of them have called him, he's got to navigate that however he has to navigate it.
Yeah, and look, he was very upfront in terms of we have to search out every possible avenue, every possible, availability for us to increase revenues as a conference. And so I think that's an example of, even if he's not coming out and saying, yeah, these schools are doing it, or we as a conference are doing it, or anything like that, he doesn't want to seem to shut that door to any possibility. And so I think you're right. I think that was one of the more telling things of his comments was there's been a lot of, news and concern about this out there. And while we haven't had anybody, completely jump into that ring yet, the commissioner, who's really pushing value growth and revenue growth, kind of gave a response that, hey, maybe this would be something that we shouldn't shy away from.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes. Now, we've talked enough about like the legal and all these things are revenue-wise. Let's talk about some actual ball as it comes up here, Justin. This is a league in the Big 12 that should be, when it talks about being relevant, I mean, there's not going to be a more competitive league in the country this year, I would think. I would think it might even mirror last year, the top of the Pac-12 last year that was so good.
Yeah, and that was something Brett Yormark talked about. That was something Linda Livingstone talked about on Friday, which was they're really going to lead into this idea that this is the most competitive, power conference certainly in America right now. And I think that's reflected in things like the Vegas win totals, or also just kind of the general tone of programs. I did a power rankings on the Big 12 that we talked about a couple weeks ago. I think you could easily make the case for 8 teams to kind of be in the mix. You could probably, on an optimistic side, extend that to a couple more schools. And so that's going to be, I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of messaging and tone around the Big 12. And look, that's genuine. I think there's the Big 10 has some really exciting teams. The SEC is always going to have teams that are in the mix for the national championship. But at the bottom of the conference, sometimes even the bottom half of the conference, there's a lot of teams that aren't really going to have a chance even entering the season. And for the Big 12, I don't think the conference feels that way. I don't think a lot of the teams feel that way. And so if you're kind of setting up the excitement with a 12-team playoff format and a couple teams having a chance to get in, I think that's something that maybe the Big 12, they don't necessarily have a ton of advantages over the Big 10 and the SEC right now, but I think that could be one of them.
Yeah, they're probably not getting, for them to get 3 teams in, they'd have to have 3 teams that 2 of which didn't play each other in the championship, and like an 11-1 and like a 12-0 and 11-1 and a 10-2, which is more likely to happen than it ever has with 16 teams. But they're not getting 3 in. But if they do play their cards right, there is a shot that they could get 2 in, even with the Big 10 and SEC trying to block out as many people as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned with that 16 team, there's going to be teams at the top of the standings that don't play each other. And so tiebreakers are going to come into play. And you could have a team that, maybe doesn't get a chance to play in the championship game. But if, they play really well and have 1 or 2 losses and get boxed out and some things fall their way and in terms of the rankings, they could be right there in the mix for that 12. So you're right. Getting 3 or 4 teams is probably unrealistic for the most part. But with the way, kind of just the whole field has shifted in terms of power conferences and the way this playoff format sets up, there's going to be a couple of teams, when you get into October and the title race starts to heat up, that are going to feel like they have a chance not only for a conference championship, but to get to the playoffs.
I'm curious your opinion before we let you go on Greg Sankey last week. He threw out, and it's something I'm going to call it every time I hear it, when they were talking about the employment question. And he said not one single college athlete has come up to him and said, I would like to be taxed like an employee. Well, I mean, yeah, but nobody wants to be taxed like an employee. I don't want to be taxed at all, but it's the price I have to pay for being an American citizen and having a job. Like, that's just how it works. Like, I don't really buy the excuse of like, oh man, these kids are going to hate paying taxes. Well, I'd rather pay taxes on $750,000 than not have $750,000, if that's what your point is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to juxtapose, just as with the private equity comments, like, Brett Yormark and Greg Sankey. He came up through the college ranks. He's, a power conference commissioner that's been around for a while. Brett Yormark, which the industry seems to be kind of drifting this direction, right, which is hiring the media executives and the moguls who have more of a business perspective to see kind of how those differ in the way they talk about it. Because you're right, Greg Sankey was talking about, hey, I don't know if we want to be taxed like employees if you're a player, or the whole Red Lobster private equity thing. Brett Yormark was going more towards how can we drive revenue growth and branding and all that stuff. And I think it'll be interesting to see if there's any coordination or if they kind of come together moving forward. But just in general on those comments, I also think you're going to see with this House settlement and trying to get that situated, and the NCAA is still going to be working with Congress to get antitrust exemptions and all that kind of stuff. I think they're really going to lean into, well, this settlement deal was good, but we need to focus on this and maybe kind of sit tight for a while. Whereas there's certainly going to be another faction of people that this just opens the door to collective bargaining and employment and a whole other conversation. And again, I realize we feel like we're so much talking about off the field stuff, but until we can finally get players on the field and start talking about games, I think this is going to be the dominant topic of college sports and definitely football here for the next couple months.
Yeah, especially, you sat through a whole press conference that was 35 minutes long the other day. And, Smokey was asking me like afterwards, cause I was, on the Zoom, and he said, well, what were the big things? I said, well, there was a lot of, long explanations for here's why we don't know, but there was not a lot of like, well, here's what we absolutely know right now. Like, we've figured this out. There were no answers on the other end of that. Like, just like, oh, we don't know. I think between Dr. Livingstone and Brett Yormark, like maybe 3 definitive answers, and it's not their fault. They don't know, but like the whole 35 minutes of 3, like, oh no, here's what we're going to do there. The rest of it was like, it's been less than a week. We have no idea.
Yeah, and that's the toughest part with the settlement is it's not finalized yet, right? So, I think they expect a lot of this stuff to go through in some form or fashion, but until they have the hard sign off, from the courts and from the judge, it's kind of tough to speak too definitively on any of this. And it is so new. And so while definitely, behind the scenes, these ADs and presidents, they're planning for the revenue sharing, they're planning for kind of this new world order. But when you're asking questions and people are on the record, I can understand the hesitancy to say definitively one way or another on certain things, because the truth is, they don't have hard answers. Same thing with like the roster limits and the Title IX stuff. Trust me, those people are genuine when they're saying, well, we're not totally sure how this is going to look, because they don't have answers yet. And so when you think about the fact that this revenue sharing and the settlement stuff could kick in next football season 2025, but it might not get, figured out until later this late fall or even as late as like January 2025 or something like that, there's going to be a lot of policies and new guidelines that have to get implemented on the fly and pretty quick. And so, it could be a little bit of a cluster if we get to that point.
Here's my idea. They get all the decision makers in a room, and they get attorneys there, and they throw ideas out there, and the game is, how do we not get sued? And if they throw out an idea where they're going to get sued, then everybody has to take a shot. And then 4 days later, when they come out of the coma that they're going to be in from the 50 shots they're going to have to take a day, then they'll be like, okay, here's the plan, and that'll be what we go with.
It's definitely true. And the other, funny part of that is you usually don't want to be first, right? Because if you go first, then that's what could leave you open to the lawsuit potential. And so I think for a lot of people, whether it's the private equity thing or, how you handle the revenue sharing, I think a lot of people are going to be kind of hoping that there's like a maverick out there who, throws caution to the wind and does whatever they want, and then see how that falls out from a legal perspective. Because for most people, I think they just want to be on the safer side and not get sued, like you said. And that's, I think, going to be a big topic of talk. Again, I much rather prefer talking on the field in football, and we'll certainly get there once fall arrives. But for now, it's a lot of legal talk, revenue growth talk, and all the kind of boring eat your vegetable stuff that we're going to have to deal with first.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, thanks so much for hopping on today. Are you going to go to Vegas? Do you know yet?
I'll be in Vegas. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we'll see you in Vegas, buddy.
Absolutely.
Justin Williams of The Athletic here on 365 Sports. When we come back, our good buddy Taylor McHargue joins us to talk kind of the changes in college football as he sees it from an ex-player's perspective, what he advocates for, and of course, what he thinks about the upcoming season and how the rosters have shaken out and where he's leaning towards kind of the power shifting with these new conferences in college football in 2024. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Our good friend Taylor McHargue joins us now, former Rice quarterback and current broadcaster. Who did you do 3 games in a week last year? Did you get a trifecta?
We did. We got a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday last year. We did have that stretch. Tried to pull off a Friday, Saturday, and had the flight get canceled Saturday morning. So I don't think I'll try that again.
Oh, well, that's Taylor's Swift hours that you're working there. So
not quite the same pay. I'll switch contract to Taylor Swift.
I'm sure you would. Taylor, as a former player, and you've seen all these things going on, back pay. Unfortunately for you, that doesn't apply to you because it's past the statute of limitations. But back pay, revenue sharing, all of this, from your perspective as a player, do you like this? Do you think it needs to be morphed? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I've always been in support of some sort of compensation that goes beyond a player scholarship, and that's across all sports. So we've talked about this on your show, even with Olympic athletes that go compete at the highest level in the Olympics, and they deserve the endorsement dollars that come with that. And that is what it felt like athletes were missing out when I was playing. My last year was 2013. So outside of that statute of limitations, it was illegal for a booster to buy us dinner. Where now, look, I mean, it is the Wild West in terms of recruiting, and all of these coaches, even in baseball, you heard the head coach, I believe it was for Coastal Carolina, talking about how NIL has just, in his mind, ruined college sports. And I think it's turned a lot of fans off because it really has turned into just the highest bidder. And coaches will tell you, one of the first questions that sometimes these kids are asking, if not the first question, is, well, how much are you guys able to offer me? What are you going to pay me? Outside of my scholarship, in the way of NIL and the collective that you have at your school, even for kids out of high school, much less transfers. And I think, this is a byproduct of the NCAA kind of having their head buried in the sand for a very long time. And there was no real succession plan put in place for, whenever ultimately these kids were able to make money beyond their scholarship. This is the other side of it. There's really no guardrails or rules in place right now.
So, when you were how much was this talked about when you were playing amongst players?
Not really at all, because at the time we were trying to fight to get, we wanted bigger checks for our off-campus stipend. We were not, it wasn't really, and again, I played at Rice, right? So even in this NIL world that we live in, Rice is, there are a few guys on that team that I know have, like a JT Daniels when he came in. I know there was a contract in place for him. But it's not one of those schools where you've got, everybody on the roster is getting paid something, at least not that I'm aware of. But it wasn't something that we were, wasn't top of mind certainly then. I think now though, the difference is there's a expectation with any kid that's playing Division I that they are asking for some sort of compensation. Now, obviously, at the highest level, at the Texas and the Floridas and the Notre Dames of the world, A&M, that's part of recruiting now, is having that budget in place and going to your boosters, throughout the year, saying we've got to fundraise for this because it just never stops. But, when I was playing, this was, again, we were just trying to get more money for our stipend checks.
Yeah, and that was kind of the big, the first benchmark to cross was – more for the stipend check, more actually getting enough meals for the day. When you're a high-end college athlete and you have to consume, 3,000 calories, especially during workouts, and they're giving you enough for about 700 calories. Those were the gaps they had to close. But always been interesting to me, the talk of it over the years and what it was. And now it is this free-for-all that's changed things. But have you seen, at least in this last portal cycle, it appears that while there's still a ton of movement and people leaving, but roster retention does appear to be better, and it feels like schools and collectives have at least the first part of this maybe figured out so that we don't have guys going all over the place all the time.
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it. I think you've seen, it depends on, in some of these schools, when they put out, and I'll use Rice again as an example, the majority of their production coming back this year. But a lot of that retention is based on what are you able to play or pay your existing players. And what's also interesting that I don't think people realize is you see these kids that they transfer in, how often are teams able to fundraise for that player again? And what are the expectations of that player if maybe they didn't meet the expectations, right? If you bring somebody in that's supposed to produce at X amount or X level and they're not able to, that school's not going to offer up the exact same contract the next season. And I think that's where we go back to having guardrails in place. In any sort of contract, take professional sports, for example, these guys oftentimes are in multi-year deals, 3 or 4 year contracts where they're guaranteed, they base them out. And if they walk away from it, then they're not owed that anymore. I think that's really what we're trying to get to in college. And I think in the revenue share format makes it a little bit easier to accomplish that. But there's still so many things we've got to cross and rules that we've got to sort out and with the Group of Five and Power Five, or I guess it's Power Four now. But roster retention goes beyond, just what are you able to pay your existing players? You're balancing who you're bringing in, and then also how much you're able to pay your high school recruits as well.
So, Taylor, let's talk some actual football now, because so much of the offseason is, legal battles and conference realignment and what's going on in court and these kind of ridiculous things, which is not why we do what we do. And most of us aren't even qualified to talk about it anyway, because we didn't go to law school. But when you look ahead to next season, and we did a segment about the national championship odds, there are teams like Michigan and Washington who both lost a lot of players. Now Washington also, and they both lost coaches, and it might be an easier transition at Michigan. But as far as teams that you see on the rise and maybe on the fall, like at least on a dip temporarily while they get their new coaching staff settled, how do you see the top teams shaking out so far in this offseason?
Yeah, you mentioned Michigan. I mean, that's one that I'm very curious to see. How do they respond? There is still a ton of talent left on that roster. But my goodness, I mean, look at the NFL draft, how many guys that are not going to be in Ann Arbor this year. And, oh, by the way, you've got a new staff as well. So that's one obviously paying attention to. You mentioned the odds. Ohio State coming into the season, second best odds for a national championship. Curious to see how Texas does as well. I think last year, even Longhorn fans will admit, maybe a little bit ahead of schedule getting to the college football playoff, and had a chance to beat Washington late and actually get into the national championship against Georgia. And so I think they may have been a year ahead of schedule, and now so much of that production back this season, very active again in the portal, and their roster top down. I mean, it's as good a roster as you've seen for Texas, in my opinion, since that 2009 national championship team that lost to Alabama. So curious to see how they perform, especially early in the season. They have that test at Michigan, and then that schedule. I mean, you talk about a step up moving over to the SEC. They're playing Michigan, Georgia, A&M, and Oklahoma all on the same schedule. And your down weeks in conference, you're talking about Florida, Mississippi State. I mean, this is going to be a really challenging schedule right from the jump for the Longhorns.
You mentioned Florida just a second ago. They have the hardest schedule that's ever been created by man. Like, it's insane. They have one game on their schedule that you can say they'll definitely win that one, and the rest of them, even the ones they'll be favored in, is still like, man, this is dicey. I doubt they'll have a double-digit spread outside their FCS opponent all year long, even when they're favored. If you're the Florida powers that be, and Billy Napier already hasn't delivered the results that you want, but do you take into account that even Tennessee, who's better than that, or Georgia would hate this schedule. Everyone else in the league would hate the schedule that they were dealt.
The schedule's brutal. I think you're really looking, if you're part of the administration for Florida, you're looking to see how do they perform even in a loss, right? If it's on the road and you're playing close, anybody that's reasonable will be able to look up and see, okay, even if we had Nick Saban, we're probably not competing for a national championship this year. I think the biggest thing, though, is some of the off-the-field stuff, how they handled getting sued right now. I think that's the stuff that if you're a booster and the results aren't there on the field, oh, by the way, we're also getting dragged in the mud off the field as well, with headlines that you don't need in your program. I think that's the stuff that it wears on people. And if it's another down year, that's where you use that as an excuse, even with this brutal schedule, to make a change.
If you look at the Big 12, it's hard to pick a favorite right now. It's hard to pick a team that you know for sure will be. I know there's some teams like Cincinnati or Arizona State that we didn't see a lot from last year and that we don't know, but it's hard to see a team that's going to be a true bottom dweller. Do you think that will be the most competitive league in the country this year, top to bottom?
I think it's going to be incredibly competitive. I also think it's going to be incredibly entertaining. And I know losing Texas and Oklahoma, you lose some of that firepower, certainly. And I do think you lose, the potential for the big upsets. Anytime somebody would come in, take a Kansas a few years ago, even when Texas wasn't great, those games are always highly entertaining if there's an upset between those two teams. But man, with the schools that you have now, and when you factor in that you're now grabbing some of that West Coast time zone as well with Arizona and Arizona State, Mountain Time, West Coast time, you're going to get some of those late kickoffs in conference play. I think this has all the makings to be a really competitive and fun conference. These schools play a fun brand of football. And I thought it was interesting when you looked at odds that you had Kansas sitting there with the third best odds in the Big 12, Kansas State, Utah, and then Kansas. But I think this is going to be a league that you've got teams, all the way down to Cincinnati and Arizona State that I think could pop up and bite anybody in the league. I think it's going to be really competitive and a lot of fun to watch.
It hasn't been this way since 2008 or whatever it was when Todd Reesing was there. But if Jalen Daniels is healthy, I don't know many teams that are going to be able to beat Kansas. And even though they're not going to play one single true home game this year because of the stadium renovations, that's a team that could find its way into the playoff to me pretty easily, given the health of Jalen Daniels, who I think most teams in the country, save for 3 or 4, would trade a healthy Jalen Daniels for the quarterback that they have.
I think I totally agree. I think it's a really difficult brand of football to prepare against on the defensive side. And when you have somebody that's that dynamic at the quarterback spot, it doesn't matter the league. I mean, that's a difference maker. It really just comes down to his health. And what I'm also curious to see in the Big 12 is this a 2-team bid for the playoffs out of the 12-team league, or is this because it also, as competitive as we've talked about, I think this also has the potential to be a league that kind of gobbles itself up, and you end up with a champion that may have 3 losses on the schedule by the end of the season. I think that's certainly possible here. And if that's the case, I think it's going to be really hard to sneak 2 teams in there. Now, if you get some separation, possible to get, one that has a 1 loss, maybe the second place has 2 losses and you get 2 in. But that's also something in this first year of the expanded playoff, when it gets down to the wire. We've just replaced the drama of a 14 bid. We're trying to get that 5th team. Who's going to be the 5th team that's left out? Well, now it's who's the 13th team. And that's going to be all the drama around, is that a second place or third place Big 12 team versus is that a 4th place or a 5th place SEC team?
What do you think about Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, one of the better quarterbacks in the country, going to be a very highly, sought after in the draft more than likely. But the fact that roster has turned over again, and maybe it's better than it was a year ago, but right now that's just so hard to tell, and it's so hard to build chemistry, even when you have a really good roster that's been together for a while. Sometimes that's tough to do.
Colorado, I think, like everybody else, I'm just in a wait and see mode, because last season you had the whiplash of such a surprise, their success early. And then I think everybody that really followed the sport knew that at some point this was going to catch up with them, that they had outperformed expectations early. They had also taken advantage of some of the weaker teams on their schedule early, and then it caught up with them. And what Dion and his staff are trying to do is different than basically everyone else in the country. They go out and have proven in back-to-back years they have no problem revamping any position that they feel like they need to, and really going with the true free agent hired gun model. And is that sustainable? I think a lot of people would say no, it's not. I think you'll have more success than they did last year. But again, I think the expectations for some people got so out of whack early on, where it became, is this going to be a playoff team? When their roster, from a power ranking standpoint, was in the bottom half of the country. So I think tempering expectations, let's just get Colorado to a bowl game first and then go from there.
Taylor, what you've done a lot of G5. You do a lot of G5 games. What is the G5 team that you think people are sleeping on this year?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. I'm excited to see what does the Mountain West look like this season. Boise State is a team that we've come to know them in years past as somebody that really knocking on the door of some of the big time bowl games and New Year's Day, New Year's Six bowl games. That's a team to me that he rallied late in the year last year, ended up putting together a solid back half of the schedule, and that's a team that, depending on what their roster looks like, the Mountain West, the champion of the Mountain West, tends to be in a really good position. I'm also looking to see how does Tulane bounce back. They had this incredible year last year, but they lose Michael Pratt to the NFL. They lose Coach Fritz to Houston. How do they rebound in the American Conference? But still a lot of good football. And then also interested in my Rice Owls. They bring in E.J. Warner, Kurt Warner's son, quarterback who transferred in from Temple. And like I mentioned, they've got a ton of production coming back in a league where I think they've got a chance to be really competitive, and their non-conference schedule isn't too daunting either. I think Rice has a chance to have their best record that they've had in a very long time with head coach Mike Craven.
I'm really interested to see Tulane. I think John Summerall's a heck of a hire that they made. I don't think that they're going to be like, if they have a dip, it might just be because they need to get a better quarterback or something like that to replace Michael Pratt. But for the hire they could have made, I can't imagine a better fit for coach and program given where they are.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's still what Coach Fritz had built up there and the pride that they had rolling. I just hope that Tulane is able to sustain that, because I remember going down there and playing where Tulane wasn't very good. They were playing in the Dome, and that program has come such a long way in a fairly short period of time. I just hope that they're able to sustain that. But I agree. I still think that's a top 2 or 3 team this season in the American.
Taylor, do you have big plans for the summer, you and the family?
Man, we got a couple deals. We got a 2-year-old son, so we basically, we're going to be at the pool like every single day, because that's all he wants to do. But no, we're good stuff this summer, and then working through right now what the fall is going to look like, and I'm working through contract stuff right now. So we'll know here pretty soon what that's going to be, and looking forward to another good college football season. Well,
Taylor, always love having you on the show. Thanks for hopping on today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Taylor McHargue. A burgeoning young mind in college football, I think.
Yes, good find.
Look, it was great. I think Jason Minix in San Antonio for setting us up, and I just feel like we're going to be saying like, oh man, we were early in on Taylor. Yeah, as an analyst, because he's so good at what he does.
Well, he's so passionate about it too, and he does a good job of all of the schools that he has to cover. He's got to know he's got a good catalog. Yeah, you dropped your coat there.
I didn't, not all the way.
No, all the way.
Tipped it over.
But yeah, no, he's got an interesting catalog, and it's always good to pick his brain, especially on the G5 level. I love getting his perspective. Always hearing him talk about Rice is nice. I'm really interested to see what Tulane does too. I think Summerall is a great coach. You couldn't really follow Willie Fritz up with anybody better. They do lose a lot of talent down there, but Louisiana is a talent-rich state, and you can come into Texas and recruit as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Green Wave can do this year. But I think they're going to be fine under John Summerall.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun league. Garrett, what do you want to hear? We got another guest at 4:30. Do you want to do this last time a team won a title real quick? This was really super interesting to me. You sent this to me like a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact, right? Like this was before we were
I can't remember when this one came out.
Yeah. Or maybe before you were down.
Before I died.
But if you see the top, the tiers of teams who have the last time they won, which was you get your conference winners, SMU, Michigan, Washington, Texas, Bama, and FSU. And then, it's only been one season as you go down the line. The bottom two, though, Garrett, it's an Iowa State. Like, Iowa State's been close. Vandy's never been close.
No, never.
In my lifetime, I cannot remember a year. And if you're a Vandy fan watching from the great city of Nashville, please let me know. By the way, Nashville, one of our top markets we discovered today when we were looking at our numbers for 2023. And it's been 100+ seasons or never for these programs winning a conference title no matter what league they were in.
So
and
bad.
I just can't imagine.
The one that, like, Vandy I can get behind. I understand Vandy. Iowa State, that does not make sense to me because, like, they're always pretty good. They've had runs. Like, even, like, to me, I never really – the first time Iowa State ever even came on my radar was the Seneca Wallace years. But they were pretty damn entertaining under him. But the fact that they haven't won a conference championship, that's alarming to me.
Yeah. And I would have thought Miami would have been on this 21-40 seasons, but maybe they won a Big East title again before they left to go to the ACC. But the two right above them are even more starkly surprising to me. Texas A&M, it's been since 1998 that they won a conference title. Nebraska, it's been,
did they win Sue's last year? Or
No. I mean, Texas won. 1 second on the clock. Colt McCoy throwing it out of bounds. So it's been a long time for Nebraska. Look, we hear it all the time. Texas Tech, it's been a very long time since they've won. They've never won a Big 12 title as far as I don't think they have. They haven't. Tennessee has been since they won the national title. Colorado, I think the same thing. Or maybe they won one in the Big 12. Yeah. Arkansas has never won the SEC.
And I don't think they ever will. Like I just realistically, I don't see, especially the way it's grown. You got rivalries coming in. I don't see Arkansas winning. I just don't see it realistically happening.
Yeah. It's been 40+ seasons for Ole Miss, and this has
got to be the year.
There's got to be the year they get close. And now look, conference titles now mean a little bit less, obviously. It's still going to mean something. Don't get me wrong, but you cannot win the conference title, and if you have a good enough record, you're going to be in the 12-team playoff.
Just like Penn State's a prime example. Like Penn State's the perfect team for that. Like you're more than likely not going to win the Big Ten ever. But it's going to take a rare season. But yeah, you're always going to be in the mix. But yeah,
it's only been 2 seasons for Baylor and Pitt. Since they last won.
But it feels like Baylor feels like a long time. 2021
feels like a very long time ago. A very long time ago. Just a lot has happened then. But there's a lot of schools on this list that are surprising. And I would tell you the ones that are most surprising in the 40+ seasons to me on the second to last level are North Carolina and just North Carolina. Ole Miss doesn't surprise me. NC State had a couple good runs under Chuck Amato, but really North Carolina surprises me a lot given how much they care about that their whole athletic program, and they've been second place in the ACC a bunch over that time.
To me, looking at that, I'm more intrigued by Mizzou. Like Mizzou has had some talent. Like they've been good, but even going back to the Big 12, they were always on the cusp. You go to that first year of the SEC, you get to the championship game, and you get. I think it was Georgia that beat them. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I mean they've had the talent, and they're a team that could make a push for it. But I don't think they're ready to win the SEC just quite yet either. But that's a team that's kind of. I don't think I would have ever guessed it been that long since they won a conference title.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. I would not have either. And so that's a huge look. And then everybody else is about where I would think they would be. But I mean, look, Northwestern's won in the last 20 seasons a conference title, and Vanderbilt, who's their next closest comp, has not. Rutgers has.
Yeah.
Right? Before they joined the Big Ten, there's a lot of Boston College, Syracuse, there's a lot of teams that in the last 20 years have won conference titles. And then when you get past that 20 seasons, there's a couple on there that have to look up that and go, this is nuts. And there's a couple on there that 11 to 20 seasons is far too long. And I would say that the 2 schools in Florida that are on that list for sure. And yeah, there are just that's a lot, and this is obviously schools that are in the power conferences now. But when they won their last conference title, they weren't necessarily in those conferences. So anyway, we'll take a break here. When we come back, Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, the cover it was released today, and it's got a familiar. This is not a new thing for them, having Texas and Texas A&M quarterbacks on the cover at the same time, but now it's a big deal because these quarterbacks will actually play each other for the first time in over a decade this year as they head down the stretch on Thanksgiving weekend. That Saturday, the rivalry is renewed. We'll talk about that and, what he thinks about some of the teams in Texas going forward. SMU, as they join the ACC, what he thinks about the Big 12 and those things. That's all coming up. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right. Day and night, average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, Emery, and Jack are doing hard work today. Locked in, as always. We're going to have Jack on in a segment probably after this because he has strong opinions on the Caitlin Clark situation, which to me, Garrett, just let the world know, how intriguing this is to me as the guy who
the guru, our women's basketball guru.
Yeah. You know what? I may non-ironically adopt that title for spite.
I think you should at this point.
Yeah, just get into it.
Just fully embrace it.
Yeah, fully embrace it.
Fully embrace your hate.
Yeah. No, I mean, just start, do it. I mean, it's getting way better than it was. I can tell you. I know from long experience.
Yes.
Yeah, it's getting way, way better. Anyway, but Mike Craven joins us now. Mike, the cover has been released for Dave Campbell's. This is not a holiday. It's more like a feast day. If you grew up Catholic like I did, every saint has a feast day. This is kind of a Texas feast day, isn't it? When you guys released the cover.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a fun day. It's nice to see the excitement out there, and for us, it allows us not to keep the secret anymore. You just get asked that question so often by friends and coaches and people in the industry, and you have to just kind of give them the runaround. And now I can just kind of talk about the cover story, so that's always nice.
So my uncle, I grew up in a family full of Aggies. I'm not one, but I guess I am by relation. But I talked to my uncle today, and he is of the old Aggie group that he doesn't want to play Texas anymore. But then there's a whole group of generation now of Aggie grads who never went to an A&M Texas game when they were at school. And this is coming back in. The cover, certainly with Quinn Ewers and Connor Wigman on it, kind of celebrates the point that these teams are going to be playing again for the first time in over a decade. What is the buzz that you felt around talking to fan bases, coaches, administrators from these programs about this rivalry being back?
Yeah, I mean, I think the buzz is high. I mean, just look at, what is it, Friday night or Saturday night when Texas A&M played a baseball game in a regional tournament. It was huge. That place was sold out. All the fans were on Twitter talking about it, right? I think college football at its core is a regional sport, and we've lost so much of that with conference realignment over the last 10 to 15 years, especially over the last 3 or 4, that it's nice to have one of these back. I think most of us grew up, even if you didn't grow up in a Texas or Texas A&M household, you had a favorite of these two teams. Like, you had a rooting interest. You either identified with Texas or you identified with A&M, or you hated one more than the other. Like, you had a rooting interest. And so for the state, I think it's important to have it back for the bragging rights, for the recruits. I think overall it's something that, yeah, sure, some people don't want it back for different reasons, but I think overall most people do.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to get credentialed to it. We'll see. I mean, I'm not going to be the only one who asks. I know that. So, but yeah, I grew up going to that game quite often. It's a fantastic rivalry game, and we're losing so many of them, and I don't think a lot of those, we're not going to see Bedlam again for the foreseeable future. The last Bedlam was a year ago. I wonder how the college football populace will feel about that when we have these years where those things are gone now. The Pac-12 rivalries that are essentially dead, and all of those things, and trying to fit Stanford and Cal into the ACC and how weird that's going to be. I wonder how they're going to feel about it, and I wonder if how soon the administrators will feel that kind of regret when it comes to maybe people not watching some of these games as much as they thought they would.
Yeah, I mean, this didn't fit into the cover story, but I talked to RC Slocum about it. He was really close with Darrell Royal, and he said towards the end of Darrell Royal's life, he was, eating lunch with him, hanging out with him at his house, and it was him, John David Crow, Darrell Royal, and David Williams, and they were kind of talking to Coach Royal about stuff, and Slocum kind of mentioned, isn't it going to be weird that Texas A&M isn't going to play anymore? And Coach Royal leaned forward and was like, "What?" He couldn't even fathom that Texas and Texas A&M weren't going to play. It confused him. He had no idea, how a reality of that, could exist. And I think for a lot of us, it's been that way, right? I grew up around the Texas program. My grandfather was the rehab specialist up there for UT. We did Thanksgiving the day before Thanksgiving my whole life because he wasn't going to be around. That was just part of our, family fabric. And I think that's true everywhere. If you're a Longhorn, Aggies. If you're an Aggie, Longhorns. If you're a Longhorn, how many Ole Miss alumni do you really know and care about to talk trash with and stuff? And I think that was what was so great about the game. The Texas OU rivalry is a state rivalry with hatred. The Texas A&M rivalry is a family rivalry between your uncle or your aunt or your brother or your dad, depending on what side you're in. So I just think it's good for the fabric of football. I think it's going to show just kind of what matters in this sport. And to me, that's always been the regional rivalries and the bragging rights and the trash talking of your friends and your family and that, what comes with that.
Mike, again, there's a lot of shakeups in Texas. It means the Big 12 is going to be completely different. SMU's now in a power conference in the ACC for however long that conference lasts. After their court battles continue. But do you see this as, with Texas on the upswing and playing in the playoff last year with, Tech looking like it has some positive momentum, even though they've been a little up and down, with TCU a couple years ago, all this is going to be good for the state of Texas overall, football-wise?
It'll be interesting. The last couple of years, it feels like a team that's kind of come not out of nowhere, but you couldn't predict the TCU thing. You didn't predict the Baylor thing in 2021. To an lesser extent, SMU's run last year, and just if Texas could get over the hump, there's always there's always a team we think is going to be really good that ends up not being that great. There's always a team or two who we don't have huge expectations for that ends up being great. It's hard though. Right now, I'm finishing up a book about the history of college football in the state, and you got to go back a long ways to find a national champion that's not Texas, right? It's hard in this state with 13 schools and how big it is geography wise to have a dominant team. It's not like Louisiana where LSU kind of gets all of the best players and it's an insular state, and so they can really lean there. Ohio State with Ohio, Georgia with Georgia. Texas is big. You live in Dallas, you're as close to Oklahoma as you are at UT, right? You live in West Texas, you're not close to Houston, and so I think the size of it makes it hard, and it's hard to predict the state of Texas. But I would think in the AP poll that comes out that in first week one of the college football season, Texas may be the only one ranked. I think it's kind of an odd year in the state where there's a lot more question marks than known if you look at each individual program.
Let me get your opinion on this, since you're writing the history of this and going back, like, you know, Texas won in 2005. Before that, it was in the 70s when they won, you know, so they went the entire decades of the 80s and 90s and didn't win a national title. A&M had always had these teams that people thought, like, oh, this is the year that Coach Slocum's going to break through. I remember one year they were ranked like third, and they played Colorado on the road, and Colorado just shredded them to death. And that was the kind of the end of the hope of them contending then. Do you think the Southwest Conference was too obsessed with itself, while other programs around the country, the Nebraskas and Miamis and Ohio States and that were obsessed with winning national titles as opposed to being the big dog in their own conference alone?
Yeah, there's probably something to that. You know, like Texas is kind of its own, you know, we're the America of the world, right? We kind of think we're our own thing. You know, it's important to beat your neighbors. Just to speak of how regional it used to be, you know, my grandfather would talk about it. If they played Arkansas at home and they had a good year to where they made the Cotton Bowl, the Texas Longhorns didn't leave the state once for a road game at all year, right? They play every single game inside the state. So, you know, it's just different. It's just changed in that way. And I you know, you look back, you know, since World War II, the only programs to win a national championship are Texas and SMU, the two times in the 80s. And we could argue if those two national championships really count for SMU. And so I just, you know, you look at the recruiting rankings, the top 50, the top 100 of each state. Well, if you pick Ohio, you know, most of those guys are going to Ohio State. You pick Louisiana, most of those guys are going to LSU, right? I think Texas is one of those states that it's always been hard to concentrate the talent enough to go win at a national level, because Tech gets their guys. TCU gets a couple guys. SMU gets a couple guys. A&M gets more. Texas gets more. Like, they're just so spread out that it's felt hard to win at a national level, you know, except for those years that Texas hasn't really going because A&M is down. And so it's just, I just think the size of the state makes it hard for one team to kind of rise to the top and win national championships.
What do you think about SMU as they embark on this AC? Do you think that they will be a force to be reckoned with year one? I know they're probably behind FSU, Clemson, maybe I don't know about North Carolina, but maybe North Carolina. But really, you look at a lot of teams coming back in the ACC. They stand a good shot to compete most of the year.
Yeah, they're an interesting story. I mean, last year they were 11-0 against the G5 and 0-3 against the P4, and that includes a loss to Boston College in a bowl game that's now in their conference. And so, you know, they spent all offseason kind of reinforcing the trenches. They brought in 8 new defensive linemen, all of them for Power 4 schools. They brought in 3 new offensive linemen, all from Power 4 schools. Like, they know they have to get better in the trenches. I think they have the 7-on-7 team to compete. It's just whether that offensive line and defensive line can make the jump from middleweight to heavyweight. I like to divide these things in tiers. And so if tier 1 is Miami, Clemson, Florida State, I don't think that there's any reason SMU can't aspire to be kind of the king of tier 2. You know, and I think what's ironic about the SMU program is the thing that killed it, right? The thing that gave it the death penalty is the thing that's allowing it to kind of come out of its coma, and that's using NIL in the city of Dallas to kind of, you know, help attract talent. With the transfer portal, with NIL, there's no reason SMU can't be a pretty solid contender at the P4 level.
Do you get the sense from SMU fans that they're really hoping that Arkansas looks elsewhere if they decide to move on from Sam Pittman than Arkansas native Rhett Lashley?
Yeah, no doubt. You know, I think just knowing SMU fans, they'd argue with you that the SMU job's a better job.
I don't debate. I wouldn't even really debate them that far on that.
Yeah, and that's how quickly this can change, right? Like 3 years ago, that's insane. Like 3 years ago, the SMU coach leaves across town to go to TCU, right? Like much less to an SEC program. But with NIL, with Dallas, with getting into the Power 4, with a route to the 12-team playoff a little bit easier now, and the kind of money and support you're going to get. I mean, one of the offensive line transfers they added was an all-SEC freshman team guy from Arkansas, like from the University of Arkansas. So, yeah, that's going to be if it goes the way we think it will with Arkansas and they're in a head coaching search, I think 2 schools in the state are going to have to look at that. And that's going to be SMU fans and it's going to be UTSA fans.
Of Baylor and TCU, both who missed bowl games last year, which one do you think will have the better resurgence this year?
TCU. I like their roster more, what they did in the portal. You know, I think Josh Hoover's a pretty good quarterback. I have no idea about Baylor. That's not to say Baylor can't become an 8-9 win team. I mean, they came off a 2-win team in 2020 and went and won 12 games. And so, like, It's not that I don't think Baylor has an upside. I just don't know what it is. Like if TCU went 4-8, I'd be completely shocked. If Baylor went 4-8, I don't know if I'd be all that surprised. But I also wouldn't be that surprised if you told me Baylor went 8-4. Like that's just one of those teams that's really hard to kind of get a grasp on right now.
Well, look, we cover them on a daily basis, and I think everybody in this room, and Craig and Smokey aren't here, we'd all go, we don't know what's going to happen. Dave Aranda, I think, has checked all the boxes he needed to check for do this, improve this, go get this better. But, like, checking boxes is different than that's just step one as opposed to applying it to on the field and seeing how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, it's the offensive line, right? I know Baylor has some familiar faces there, but they weren't all that great the year before. Like, they're going to have to, Big 12 is quietly, maybe not quietly to people paying attention, but I think the national perception of the Big 12 is the old Mike Leach Big 12, and it's not that anymore. Like, it's a bloody you in the mouth Big 12 these days, and the physical, powerful offensive line running teams have floated to the top. That was Baylor in 21. It was TCU and Kansas State in 22. It was Texas and Oklahoma State last year. With Baylor, I don't know if their offensive line can push guys around, can pull lead teams around. I think you need to do that in the Big 12 nowadays.
Mike, how much more work do you have to do on the book?
Friday it's out. So we're in the editing, kind of getting the designs back, seeing all the pages, making sure nothing looks silly, kind of, fixing a couple last cut lines and photos and stuff like that. So at the finish line, I would not recommend building a magazine and a book at the same time. I probably did a bad job of planning that. But we're gonna survive and get through.
Well, when you write the sequel, you'll know.
That's right. I'm going to need a summer project on the next one, the spring thing. That's what's funny with my job is like all of my friends in the industry, like they're in their slow times, like they're like napping, they're at the beach, like they're trying to figure out content ideas, and then I'm drowning over here. So hopefully we get through this week and going to kind of see some clear skies ahead in June.
Well, Mike, we do want you to come up here with a book, and we'll do a whole segment on the book sometime this summer. We'll get that done. We'll get you in studio so people can see it and hear from you. We'll talk solely about the book and everything that's in it.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's going to be out August. Pre-orders start on Monday, so start seeing those links and stuff like that. I got the cover a few days ago. I'm pretty excited about it. It's my first one that I've done by myself, so pretty pumped about it. I'm also nervous about it not selling, so I will take any help from y'all that I can get. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we got a chair right here in the studio for you, so
all right,
come on up.
I live in Austin, so it's an easy drive for me.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas football. Garrett, are you a cover-to-cover guy on that?
I used to be. I'm not so much anymore. I go more so like I used to go strictly for the high school stuff and not pay too much attention to the college. Mm-hmm. Since 2020, it started to flip, and I dive more into the college stuff and kind of peruse a little bit at the high school stuff. But early on, man, yeah, I was like cover to cover with that. Had to get it, had to collect them. It's a great publication. They do an excellent job. I highly recommend anybody go get that magazine to prepare for the season, whether you're into college football, high school, or both.
Yeah, it's this is the second year that I won't be doing high school football, and I'll still read through it, but I just know that, like, if not for Dave Campbell's, especially late in the year where you have no idea who you're going to play, and you spend no time because you've got 10 games to do, and like we would always pick up like a couple others, like special games where I had to use it for that too, but at least they were local, so I had some sort of knowledge about it. But you get like deep in the playoffs, and then Midway's playing this team, like I've heard of them, right? But I haven't spent 1 second thinking about them other than I know their name, I know they're good. I've heard of a couple of their players because they're getting recruited, and it is absolutely it was essential for what we do.
No, it really is. I think anybody who's covering high school football in the state definitely can use it as a resource guide, a very valuable resource guide, honestly. And you mentioned the recruiting there. I know they have Greg Powers over there. Greg does a great job with their recruiting section, dissecting everything in there, all the players. Everybody. The cool thing is, like, every team, every college, small. It doesn't matter if it's Texas Southern to Texas. They're going to have a specific page in there giving you a breakdown about that program. program, and just the time, the energy, the effort that goes into it. Those guys do an excellent job. And I honestly saw Mike the other day. I believe it was Texas State. I think GJ added a receiver after they had turned the magazine in. He was talking about, like, trying to do a magazine like that now in these current times. We talked about it last year with Phil Steele a little bit, but that's really difficult for what they have to do, and they do an excellent job of navigating it and just trying to put everything together. And like you said, I mean, right now is the push point for that. So they're pretty swamped over there.
Yeah, I actually Phil Steele, somebody we'll have on the show too. I saw a tweet from him that their magazine's done. I think they're done into press. Now, so it should be coming out. It might be already out. I'm not completely sure. When we come back, we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark for a second, because I find it very interesting what's going on and what happened this weekend where she got totally cheap-shotted. And I don't know if it'll happen again, but the fact that it did happen in the first place, and she's an ass talker, that's for sure. Like, that, she does that. But that's all great. Like, I love, like, so is Michael Jordan, so is LeBron. Like,
all the greats are.
Very few people in professional basketball are not. It's a sport that allows itself to that. Luka is. Anthony Edwards is. They're all, like, to different levels of artistry. As a matter of fact, I just saw a clip online from John Randall. I know this is an NFL one. John Randall was the greatest.
Love John Randall.
The greatest talker in the history of the NFL. One of the only players he didn't talk trash to, Larry Allen.
I can see that.
You know why?
I can see that.
Because
he had to go up against him every time.
Game respect game, and not worth it. Not worth it. No, the juice not worth the squeeze on that one. But when we come back, we'll talk about that, and we have another graphic on the 6 teams that have made the postseason and everything. And then RJ Ochoa is going to talk Larry Allen with us, and the Cowboys letting all the leaves possibly to fall until they're going to be the last one on the trees on contract extensions. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross today. Jack McKenzie joins us now. And I wanted to bring Jack on because we were talking about this before the show, and he had very strong opinions on it. Mm-hmm. The other night, when the Fever were playing the Sky in the WNBA, and I know it's not something we talk about a lot or those words come out of my mouth ever, so I'm acknowledging that this is a jump for me. And I'm acknowledging that I may be chasing, like, the hot topic of the day. I know that, and that's not usually what we do. But it was very interesting to me because Caitlin Clark is the biggest thing that's happened to women's basketball in a very long time. Maybe ever. She may have that kind of honestly impact, at least attention-wise, and I do think there is probably some bitterness and maybe some justifiably so at lashing out at fans who are just starting to notice now because of Caitlin Clark, when there have been really good players for a really long time in women's basketball and you weren't paying attention, but she's the one who brought it together. But she's also the best shooter and scorer that you can remember in a very, very, very long time. And so that's going to get people excited. There's more media now. There's more things out there. Women's sports are getting deeper and better across the board. I think this is the best softball season we've maybe ever seen and most competitive, and it's still going on. But as far as how that's going, there's no longer, well, this team's definitely going to win. It's growing. It's there's talent spread across. NIL's helped with that and all that. But when it comes to the WNBA, that's a league that needs all the attention it can get. I don't think this is one of those things is all press is good press for them. But Caitlin Clark got cheap shotted the other night. She got totally cheap shotted on an inbound, got knocked over, and this is probably going to happen. She's probably going to take some hard fouls. And I get compared to, I don't think they really know how to call it just yet in the WNBA when it comes to their Jordan rules or whatever it is. But I saw it in college with Brittany Griner she got fouled 50 times a night, and they called 9 of them. And
the hack-a-shack.
Yeah, and just because they it's almost like the refs are like, well, what are they supposed to do? Well, they're not supposed to hit her on the arms. I remember seeing her after a game that they played against Texas, and you could see the bruises already starting. That it just happened that day because she'd just been hacked so much, and they called fouls, but they certainly didn't call every foul that they could have. And so it's very weird to me, the discourse around Caitlin Clark. And I think the jealousy that could be there for her, Jack, is really dumb because, I know that you could be, but sometimes you just got to ride the wave, and she's creating opportunity that hasn't been there before.
Yeah, it's one of those weird spots where you just see, it's almost like the whole league is sitting there being like, we've been doing this. Why are you just not paying attention? Because there are a lot of very skilled players in that league who've worked their butts off to get to where they are. But, I think you're finding out just how tough it is for some of them to ride that wave, like you said, to accept, hey, this person who might not be better than me, or maybe she is, that's its own competitive thing that, people in any sport have to deal with. But knowing that that person who might not be better than you is 100% making your sport that much bigger, that's something that can definitely rub people the wrong way. And I think that Kennedy Carter, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, just is one of those people who probably was a little too worked up about it and chose the wrong way to manifest that.
Yeah, but I also think that if you've got, people like me talking about it, I don't want Caitlin Clark to get bulldozed, but it certainly created some more interest in me in something that I've never had an interest in before. And if it's going to get more competitive and all those things are going to happen, then yeah, I think, any kind of buzz about the WNBA right now is good to a point. But again, you don't want the commissioner going hey, can you guys take a couple more runs at Caitlin? Don't hurt her. But, people talked about it. You don't want that. But I do think that also, I think there's a great thing about sports where you can create heroes and villains. Now, right now it feels like it's Caitlin Clark versus everybody, but that's silly. Weird. Yeah, that's very weird. It should be, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I hope that's the women's version of Magic and Larry.
Yeah.
That lasted for their entire careers. They were rivals. Magic and Larry being both on the dream team for me, blew my mind. Not even Jordan and all the rest of those guys, just growing up in the 80s and being a kid and going look, you can like Magic, you can like Larry, you can like neither of them. You can.
There's no in between.
But if you pick one, you're not going to like the other. And then when the Dream Team came around, which was my favorite Summer Olympics ever, and nothing will ever compare to it.
I wonder why.
Oh, well, it
was the Dream Team.
It was the Dream Team. You can't everything else is just a copy of it.
The closest I can come is Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
Because that's from actually my lifetime.
Yeah, that's probably my second favorite one, but the Dream Team. And so if you can have that Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark rivalry going forward and likely both being on an Olympic team and all those things like that you can have, that's awesome for the sport because Magic and Larry helped build the NBA into what it is right now. It used to be on tape delay.
Yeah.
Now, look, there weren't a million cable channels, but the finals were on tape delay. So if you can build that kind of rivalry, if it's Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese, I think that's great. But if it's Caitlin Clark versus everybody, that to me is problematic.
It's definitely problematic. You want to have, like, when it feels like it's someone versus the league, you want that someone to be, like, the hero that other people in the league might also look up to in some way. But when the whole league is frankly, and I think this is the other thing you have to kind of take into account with all this is like it's not the villain because we know they're better and we know they're like heroes versus villain. We don't know the heroes better. It's that we don't know the heroes better. I'm sorry, I worded that terribly, but it's about getting into that. Like, if you want, I don't know how to word this, Paul.
Yeah.
But my point being, it's great, though, that Clark isn't just getting beaten up, and she's not just dropping 30. It's a true mix. In her 11 games, she's dropped 20-plus points 5 times. She's had some real struggles, but she's also flashing that ability that everyone knows she has and that she showed off for ages in college.
Dustin Archambault in the chat makes a good point. Like, players across leagues hate the hot rookie. They hate them. They hate them because they get asked about it. And, you know, most of the time they're magnanimous about it. And they're kind of like, oh, well, you know, they're really good. And, you know, look, I'm sure everybody who played against Ohtani was like, yes, he's great. Okay. He's great. He's great. All right. I get it. You know, I don't want to play against him. Okay. It sucks. Or I do really want to play against him, but it's really hard because he's so good.
I mean, I think that an added element to all of this is frankly, the fact that the college game is bigger than the professional game in this particular sport. I think that has to be some added stuff that, like, is just being put on Clark that, like, could easily have been put on Angel Reese for all, like, if stuff just played out a little differently. It's really weird when the college game is clearly more popular than the pro game because there are people who it's their whole livelihood. It's their whole livelihood. And they are less popular than kids who it's not their job. Like, yes and no, it is their job. It's becoming their job. It's the way college sports is going. But for a while now, that's not been the case. And that's got to create some really strange resentment that I don't think we see anywhere else.
No, it's a very, very strange thing, and it's different. So we'll see, you know, how it plays out for the rest of the year. But I did want to talk about that day because I was very interested in it.
We'll see if this becomes the Jordan rules of the WNBA.
I hope that Angel Reese, because that went back to Michigan State and Indiana State in the Final Four and in the postseason. I hope Angel Reese and Angel Reese wasn't the one who did this. I mean, she wasn't mad about it, I'll tell you that. I mean, she wasn't mad about it, but Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark becomes the new Magic and Bird. To me, I'd be great with that. I'd be totally great with that. The kind of mutual respect, hatred, all that. And I guess they're buddies now. They were on the Dream Team. They were both done after that, you know, so it wasn't, you know, like they kept playing against the title. So, yeah, I love it. I know there's probably people who grew up then, like, we'll see Magic and Larry in the same commercial laughing, and they're like, no, I want you to hate each other. I don't know if they really even hate each other when they played, but they had this rivalry and this mutual respect that was like, I definitely want to beat that guy. I want to beat that guy. And then Michael Jordan came along and was like, I just want to beat everybody. Every single one of you. I want to humiliate you. And that changed the league forever.
I think I figured out what I was trying to say earlier, is that if the whole league is looking down on a player, but the fans are looking up to them, that's not what we normally have.
No.
Normally we have the fans being, like, tired of one person being against the whole league, but the league has some respect for them.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's LeBron.
Yeah.
You know, like,
it was Jordan. It was Jordan.
Like, a lot of fans out there are just like, someone just beat LeBron.
Yeah.
Please.
I have a really good friend who's a lifelong Knicks fan who, if Michael Jordan was, you know, caught in a burning building, he'd be like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
You know, that sucks for everybody who liked him.
Like,
You know,
a lot of people in the league, most people in the league have respect for those figures.
Yeah.
So it's a weird flip on that.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Absolutely. It is a weird flip. And it'll probably get there when she's not a rookie anymore, especially when she starts helping. Like when you're in a commercial with Caitlin Clark that didn't exist before and you get that money you didn't have, and you're like, man, I love the crap out of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caitlin Clark. That's probably what's going to happen. When we come back, RJ Ochoa, we talk about Larry Allen and his legacy, plus the Cowboys continuing to let leaves fall until there's not going to be any leaves left. This is 365 Sports.
We love TexasBeefHouse.com, the Duvall family, and everything they represent, their products, and also those who love to grill during the summer. We've discussed that with Samantha Duvall, who joins us, and now Father's Day is just around the corner.
We've got this year a Wagyu New York strip Father's Day bundle, and that will come with a package of our New York strips. There's 2 steaks to a package of our jalapeno and cheese patties, a package of our regular hamburger patties, a stick of summer sausage, and our garlic links. And it's all online, TexasBeefHouse.com. This bundle will ship free in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. So this is the perfect time to grab it because all of our steaks are only sold in auction. There will only be a limited number of these packages. So get online and order yours for your favorite dad out there. We're growing every day. Our biggest next step that we have is Bid on Beef. It is actually going to open the month of June with a sale up in New York, but this is going to be a website that we're going to do all of our beef auctions on. So it just makes it a lot easier, our own platform.
Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. Father's Day, the summer, family reunions, and so much more, plus the ability to bid on beef. TexasBeefHouse.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at Marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. My good friend, RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. His backdrop, I said we had to have him on video today because his backdrop is as good as anyone's in the Zoom game, RJ. And so today when I reached out to you, I wanted to talk about the Cowboys letting all the leaves on every tree fall before they make contract extensions. But I think we have to lead this off with maybe the greatest offensive lineman of all time and the passing of Larry Allen, tragically at 52. And while he's on vacation with his family, which is a very sad story, but his legacy will, remain with the Cowboys. But not only the greatest Cowboys offensive lineman of all time, but in the discussion for the greatest in the history of the league.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Paul. Definitely one of my 50 greatest friends in the world. Glad I
made the top 50.
But in all seriousness, it is super tragic, obviously. You're right. I mean, if there are any, very few offensive linemen in NFL history that I think you would rank above Larry Allen. And I think for anyone whose kind of life was significantly molded by the 90s and the late 90s and obviously those Cowboys teams, and if your sports fandom was impacted by them in any way, shape, or form, he kind of personified, I think, everything about being a Dallas Cowboys offensive lineman. He just had the look and the power and the mobility and just this kind of aura about him, this kind of walking legend as he was. I don't know of many players whose legend was increased and exacerbated by John Madden, but Larry Allen falls into that very, very special club. And so it is incredibly tragic. I mean, in any walk of life, to die at 52 years old is just so incredibly young. It's a really heartbreaking story.
It really is. But I mean, I was 15 and the Cowboys won the last Super Bowl, and he was, of the guys who were not the glamour players, he was the one who, man, if you wanted to point to a reason that they won those Super Bowls, take out the triplets and, some of the other things, it was Larry Allen. I mean, because he elevated the offensive line that was already good with Eric Williams and Nate Newton and Sebnowski and Tuanay and all the guys that they had. He just took them to another level because he was that good.
Yeah, and you mentioned he has a legacy that will live on. I mean, the Cowboys gave Tyler Smith number 73 because he reminded him of Larry Allen. And, immediately with how Tyler kicked out to play left tackle for a majority of his rookie year, it really was just kind of Larry come back to life in that particular jersey number. And just last week in his media session, Tyler Smith was asked about him and talked about him. I mean, look, and the Cowboys have had some great offensive linemen and great ones who've worn the numbers that active players wear. I don't think Rayfield Wright gets enough discussion, and obviously Zach Martin wears his number 70. But, I mean, it's really stunning, and I think it really hit hard to see. You mentioned the glamour positions, the Troy Aikmans, the Emmitt Smiths, them kind of just share their thoughts on social media because, I know those days feel like forever ago, but they are still incredibly young people relative to overall human life.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever, I think I've interviewed almost all of the 90s Cowboys, like almost all of them, like, that were still living. Obviously, Mark Tuanay died very early as well. But all those, like all of them, maybe I have not talked to Eric Williams, but Larry Allen's the only Hall of Famer of the group that I have not talked to, or potential Hall of Famer, and done an interview because he was so shy. Have you ever actually done an interview with Larry Allen?
No, I haven't, which is a real tragedy. But, he entered the Ring of Honor in 2011, which was an impressionable time for me. And that was, just long enough, from the drought. I mean, at that point, it was, 16 years. And so it felt like a while. And that was when I was really in my heyday of kind of like fighting the fights for people online and really kind of carrying the water for him and a lot of others. And then going into the Hall of Fame 2 years later. And I think he felt, like the last one of the OGs to enter the Hall of Fame of that era. I mean, DeMarcus Ware is in there now, so we've already kind of begun a new era. I mean, look, 2013, I know it feels like 5 minutes ago. That was 11 years ago. I mean, that's really crazy when you really think about it. I mean, Travis Frederick was a rookie in the NFL when that happened. And so I've also never interviewed Troy. They're the only two, I think, of the kind of ones that would be on a poster, so to speak, that I've never had the chance to sit down with. But I'm certain that Larry Allen, that was the other thing. I mean, just kind of really renowned and appreciated and respected off the field as well. And I think that's why so many people are hit really hard by this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the current Cowboys who managed to keep doing things wrong. RJ, and it may work out. It may work out in the long run, but every other day, a wide receiver gets a contract extension. And Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa are probably going to get contract extensions before Dax gets done. And people can argue the merits of who deserves more money. That's not really how this whole thing works. It's kind of what the market is set at when the last guy got his contract. And I would have said, if there was a gold star next to someone that you wanted to get CeeDee Lamb done before, that gold star would have been like 10 of them next to Justin Jefferson. As long as we get him done before Justin Jefferson, that's the goal. They have not done that. They could have done it a year ago and bowled him over and then had a massive discount because A.J. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jalen Waddle and Justin Jefferson, and that's just 4 I just rattled off there, wouldn't have been done. They did not do it, and now they're why are they pushing themselves up against the 8 ball? Is it just that deadlines make deals nonsense that Jerry likes to spout?
I think the answer is one of 3 possible permutations here. And the first is that they're just truly incompetent and they have no idea what they're doing. And I have a lot of fun at the front office's expense on the internet, but I don't believe that to be the case. I think the second is that they, have just, and I think this is the most likely, they've just accepted, when we feel like getting up off the couch, we'll get it done. And whatever the number is, then we'll just do it. We just haven't felt like doing that yet. And if it's a, inefficient way to go about it, so be it. And I think the third, and I also think this is a little bit unlikely, is that they truly believe, and I think there's a kernel of truth to this, they truly believe in their heart of hearts that they're going to win, that they're going to find a way that CeeDee's going to take less because he's a Cowboy and it's totally worth it. And he gets the quality of life for playing for this team and this organization that someone like Justin Jefferson or Jalen Waddle or Amon-Ra St. Brown or whoever doesn't. But I think it is somewhat of a marriage between that second and third idea, because you're right. I mean, and what's frustrating about all of this is all 3 of these, big 3 situations, the Prescott, the Lamb, the Parsons, were predictable. These are all, variables that were known and have been known for a very long time, for 3 years now, since Prescott got his extension in 21 and the Cowboys drafted Micah Parsons. Obviously, they wouldn't know who he would go on to become. But I will say I don't fault the Cowboys for not getting a Lamb deal done this offseason, because there was no incentive for CeeDee to sign before him unless he just got stupid blown away. And the reason for that is if you look at Minnesota, they're in a much different financial situation than the Cowboys. They have a quarterback on a rookie contract now in J.J. McCarthy. So they can afford to kind of stretch their wings and hand Justin Jefferson a ridiculous contract in a way that Dallas can't with CeeDee Lamb. The true error, the true miscalculation was a year ago. I mean, when it comes to NFL contracts, if you have identified a player to be a cornerstone player, somebody who you want around for the long haul, then not just conventional wisdom, overwhelming logic proves that you should pay them as soon as possible. And the first offseason that Dallas was able to negotiate with CeeDee Lamb was last year. And there was not a receiver that reset the market last year. The Tyreek Hill, the Devontae Adams, the Cooper Kupp deals, those all came in 2022. So Dallas would have had to have done something uncharacteristic, which would have meant having to set the market themselves with CeeDee Lamb. Instead, they waited. I wouldn't say they quite dared him, but they left it to chance, and he turned in literally the most impressive statistical season that any Dallas Cowboys wide receiver has ever had. And now you're working up against this Justin Jefferson deal. I mean, the whole thing truly blew up in their face. I mean, they are the Coyote, and CeeDee Lamb and everybody else is the Roadrunner.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Dak now. There are, I mean, I think there's enough belief around the people who cover the Cowboys that they are willing, if they don't hear the number they get, to let Dak go into free agency. I have a hard time completely believing that, but the way this has played out and the way that McCarthy's extension has played out and that they're not going to extend him, which is not really new for the coaches, but the fact that the coach and the quarterback are up at the same time and could both be gone next year, it feels like a bit of a dangerous game they're willing to play.
I would agree with you. And the only thing I would push back on is I'm still not willing to believe. I'm still, more in the camp that they're going to find a way to keep him, even if that does mean, ultimately signing whatever dotted line that they don't feel comfortable doing right now. Whether they feel more comfortable doing that in Oxnard is ultimately up to them. But I will say I didn't anticipate getting here, so we are in uncharted waters as far as I'm concerned. Now, you brought up going into a season with the head coach and the quarterback both in contract years. That's kind of a reckless way to go about things. I would agree with you in that sense. What if I told you this is literally the second time in a row that they've done that? The last time that they had a head coach entering a contract year was Jason Garrett in 2019. That was also Dak Prescott entering the final year of what was then his rookie contract. They would go on, obviously, after they missed the playoffs that year, to not renew Jason Garrett's contract. They were very specific that they did not fire him. They just didn't renew it. And they would obviously go on to franchise tag Dak Prescott because they began their incredible overall miscalculation and missteps that have led them further and further down the rabbit hole where they currently find themselves. So while I agree with you, this is a kind of weird way to rock. This is the music that they like to play.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just they kind of keep assuming things are always going to go the same way, and they don't. And I think they're frustrating in that if they were the Lions or the Browns and like everything they didn't work out until just recently, that would be something. But they're just right there, and one little tweak of the way that they do things could change everything for this organization, and they just refuse to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all known somebody who, had never played golf and then was like, oh, I think I'll just hit this club. And it didn't make sense, right? Like, what are you doing hitting your driver off the deck? Or what are you doing, hitting this club from this length? And it works out perfectly. And it's so frustrating that, they're arriving. It's like, you're somebody, and I appreciate this so much about you, that has a deep appreciation for certain movies and television shows. And it's like when you show somebody Shawshank and they're just like, oh, that was cool. It's like, well, you're not watching it right. Like you're missing the big themes and the important parts. Like you're not understanding this the way you're supposed to. And so it is strange that the Cowboys, look, I mean, I've heard and authored all of the jokes about the playoffs and missing out and the title game drought and all these sorts of things, but they are consistently successful. Granted, in only the regular season. It is a weird way how they manage to not live in the middle here, but live at complete ends of the spectrum. It's actually statistically improbable to pull off this phenomenon, to construct their roster so ineffectively and inefficiently, yet have overwhelming success. The only team with more regular season wins than them over the course of the last 3 years is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, again, that's just the regular season. And so, a plight I find myself kind of trying to uncover a lot is a lot of people say, and your audience, I'm sure is full of it, McCarthy sucks, or Dak sucks, or both, or the front office sucks. And I think that each of them have their demerits at different points in time. But for them to be this consistently good, something has to not only not suck, something has to be awesome. So there has to be some sort of engine driving this, and nobody can A, agree on what that is, or B, provide them with the worth that is commensurate relative to the production that they're offering.
Yeah, it is so strange because it is like, I'll tell you, the movie I've discovered that people either get or don't get depending on how old they were when they watched it was The Goonies. Like,
it's all right.
See, but you were probably a little older when you watched it, right? Because you're younger than me, but I watched it when I was 7 years old, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and I just wanted to go on a treasure hunt with my buddies when I got to their age. It obviously never happened. But, like, if you watch it when you're older, you're like, well, I mean, I see where it's fun, but, I'm also not a 12-year-old. So,
right.
But they do a lot of things right. And it would be that one little thing of, what was the change in, a baseball player's, swing that he went from being a 250 hitter to a 325 hitter because he just fixed one little hitch in his giddy up. That's the one thing that they have a total blind spot for because it works out so well from the regular season. They get to the postseason and they go, well, we did all this, like it should have worked. Well, what do we do again? Well, it'll work eventually. Like, we just need to keep running the experiments because the theory is there.
Yeah, I think you could certainly play what if and butterfly effect and look back, if they do win 12 games this season and they lose in the wild card or the divisional round, and you could say and suggest, well, if you had gotten the Dak and CD and Micah Parsons deals done earlier in the offseason and given yourself some salary cap relief, you could have gone out and signed somebody that was a reason you fell short. But the just overwhelming conundrum that they continue to find themselves in is completely and totally self-induced. I mean, I know that the headline today is CeeDee Lamb, and Dak is always a headline for obvious reasons, but, any report, whether locally or nationally, is always, okay, well, CeeDee's the priority. Dak is obviously a priority because of the position he plays. They feel like they have more time left with Micah Parsons, and that's objectively true. I mean, there are more grains of sand left in his hourglass because he still has 2 years remaining on his rookie contract. They picked up the 5th-year option this year. But what is maddening, Paul, is that they're on the verge of doing with Micah what they just did with CeeDee and what they've done with Dak and what they did with DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, what if Micah turns in the type of season respective to his position and who he is that CeeDee did. I mean, CeeDee literally, by any objective measurement, had the most impressive statistical season that a wide receiver has ever had in franchise history. What if Micah breaks the sack record? What if Micah wins Defensive Player of the Year? Now, all of a sudden, you're not negotiating with a dude who's got 2 years left on his rookie contract that's anxious to get paid. You're negotiating with somebody who is closer to the light at the end of the tunnel that they've ever seen and who has more leverage working for them that they've ever had. And you're in a position of weakness because a year ago you stalled and waited and dragged out the Prescott and the CeeDee Lamb deals.
Yeah, it's maddening, RJ. It's maddening because obviously we cover the team, but we're both fans of the team, and you and I have sat agog, at the end of several playoff games next to each other, going, well, down to the locker room and let's deal with this mess, and it is so weird. And I do think that they will, because it's not like they are a premier franchise that hasn't won in a long time. The Yankees are very similar, even though it hasn't been as long for them. But they're kind of but they're not even like the Knicks. Like the Yankees have had terrible seasons in that. The Knicks have had terrible years until just now. Like all these kind of premier programs, even Man U has taken a huge dip internationally, but they could turn it around in a second and kind of fix things. Although they have bad ownership too. But this is just so unique in that most of the teams that don't win championships for so long don't get close like they do, or don't look like they're ready compared to everybody else in the league. And then almost everybody else in the league has won one since they have, save for a few teams.
Yeah, I mean, this is truly always a bridesmaid, and not just they're not always a bridesmaid. They're always the maid of honor, right? Like they have planned, 12 different bachelorette parties. They have all the points, saved up from the hotel rooms and the airlines, and they're well familiar with all the Pinterest and the Etsy kind of, situations and routines, and they have everything down to a science because they're so well accustomed to it. To your point, I mean, you can pick any era in NFL history, and there are teams who are filtered by teams that have had this much success from a one-loss standpoint in the regular season, from an offensive success, from a turnover success, from all sorts of different metrics and evaluations, and you will always cast a net that returns somebody who won a title. Always. They're the only team that has managed to, go this long by being this consistently good without not just winning a title, but even getting close enough for one. They obviously haven't reached a title game. So, and that's where, you can talk yourself, in circles with this team. You can say maybe it is just possible that they have just had maybe 3 of their worst days over the course of the last 1,000 on the most important ones. And that is just a really unfortunate coincidence for them. But again, then you kind of fast forward and get back to reality and you say, well, if you really are that good and you really have these important foundational cornerstone elements to your franchise, why are you letting them wither in the wind and take all this heat? Why don't you pay them so that you ensure you're staying here as long as possible, and you cast as wide of a net as possible?
Yeah, it is. I get very tired of the we like our guys thing too. Like I get it. Like you've been pretty good at that, but like there's other guys you can like. They're like the Dabo Sweeney of professional football. Like, oh no, we like our guys. Like, all right, look, I've heard we like, and I say this about Dabo, I've heard we like our guys enough from Dallas to know that sometimes the other guys are better. And if you can get them there, do it.
It reminds me, and I've stolen this from him many times. A good friend of mine, I believe Bobby Ballot from 105 in Dallas, and a long time ago, he kind of talked about the "We Like Our Guys" thing, and he referenced the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And there's the scene in that movie where Steve Carell's character is being consulted and being given advice, and he says, "Well, I just don't want to do that because it doesn't feel right to me." And one of his coworkers says, "Dude, you've been doing right. Like maybe it's time to try some wrong." And that's a bit of a different example, but to your point, okay, we've done it this way, and we're not saying abandon it completely. We're not even saying abandon a majority of it. I mean, clearly you have the bones and the skeleton of a legitimate operation here. You've just run into some weird stuff, and that's exacerbated by who you are and kind of the spotlight that's on you as an organization. But why don't you try doing things a little bit differently? Why don't you try getting ahead of the 8 ball on some of these things? Instead, they allow themselves to kind of continue to do the exact same thing and bank on the people who they won't pay and reward, carrying them all the way to the end. And hopefully, maybe this time just might be potentially a little bit different.
Yes, RJ Ochoa, blogging the boys. RJ, I know there have been some kind of structural changes in the way that people can get your stuff. I don't think there's a better Cowboys blogger or personality on available than you. And I say that we have a bunch of them on, but I'm biased, but you're my favorite, and you guys do really good work. And you've taken a site that could very easily be Bros on Sports and made it very, very, very fun to read and very educational. So I want people to find, where do they find all the stuff that you do?
I appreciate that, Paul. Bloggingtheboys.com obviously is the hub for all of our written content. Our YouTube channel is still up and running, so you can search for Blogging the Boys. You can subscribe there. You only get access to me and my beautiful face, unfortunately, due to the changes that you referenced. But, I try to make it worth your while. I try to make sure I wear a different shirt every now and then so that, it pops for your eyeballs. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at RJ Ochoa. Those kind of serve as hubs for everything I do individually. And if not, you can find me chatting with my boy, Paul, who's going to tell me whether or not the new Star Wars show is worth my time.
I will do that. That comes out this week, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of ready.
This week or next?
The Cowboys are like the MCU. You know what I mean? They don't have to put any effort in, and we're all going to watch and pay for it anyway. So
yeah, they very much are. They very much are. But I will let you know how it is. I've taken that on for you. Although I'll tell you, it's harder now. RJ, I'm married, and nobody told me that beforehand that you're going to be able to watch what you want. It's just on her schedule and not yours.
Yeah, or you're going to have to stay up till 1 a.m. and watch it on your iPad and be exhausted the next day. So
yeah, that's happened too, where I can't sleep. I'm just going to go up, and then the next day I'm tired. So
there are worse ways to live. We're cheating life, my friend.
There are I could have an actual bad marriage as opposed to a good one where the worst thing I have is I got to wait until 2 days later to watch this. But
well, this week that is a problem for me because I want to know as soon as possible. But I'll trust that you'll get there the moment you have it.
I'll get there. I don't have internet in my house right now, but I'll get there. I might be watching it here in the studio. Who knows? But we'll see. RJ, thank you so much, man. I'll talk to you again soon.
Be well, Paul.
All right, it's my good friend RJ Ochoa. Done a lot of work for ESPN San Antonio as well, blogging the boys, and I don't have to I know that all you watching aren't Cowboys fans, but I hope that that was you can just see how good he is on it. He just knows his stuff.
He's very good.
Yeah, he's very, very, very good.
Roughed up Kim Coulter's emotions there.
Yeah, yeah. Kim Coulter, $9.90 super chat. Paul, enough. RJ is killing my heart with facts. Yeah, no, it is, and we had a little row there of us that were, me and Stu and Kevin and RJ that would sit there next to Elwin from Gilmer.
Mm-hmm.
Elwin is a character, man. So came in wearing his Gilmer state title shirt the day after they won.
Oh, that's funny.
It was a 2X, and he's not a 2. And not on the, Emery shows up in a 2X and is draped on him like he's wearing his dad shirt. This was a schmedium situation.
Oh, no.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so... Oh, man. So there we go. Hey, look, Kim Cole, I didn't realize he was a Star Wars fan. So we have a lot in common. Me and Kim need to party. I just think that's something that needs to happen. Actually, Kim, he'll like this. Jack and I were talking about, what our Baylor road trip is going to be this year. And I think we've settled on Lubbock.
I think it should be Lubbock.
Yeah, we settled on Lubbock. I have not seen a football game in Lubbock.
I've never been to Lubbock.
I've been, and it was mostly kind of just a stop through, driving out through West Texas. So I wasn't there for a long time. So yeah, I think that's going to be the one that we're going to do. So we're going to try to make that happen and get out there and do that. And mostly, part of the reason I've never been to Lubbock is until a couple years ago, Baylor hadn't played there almost the whole time I was covering them.
I'm so glad they went back to the home and home. That was the most ridiculous thing for them meeting. I understand it's kind of a rivalry, but that's not a game you put for a damn decade at AT&T Stadium.
I would have been happy with a 4-year swing.
Yeah.
That would have been fine. Most. Yeah, but it was at the Cotton Bowl, and then it was at AT&T, and then they just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And while, look, it was easy to just go up to AT&T Stadium to do it, you know, I loved when we got to go to Oklahoma. I love when we get to go to Stillwater. I love when we got to go to those places.
That's the point of college football.
Yeah, and like, look, there was one time during that like Baylor against Texas Tech where I was at AT&T Stadium because that was during the high school playoffs.
Oh, so you lived there?
I was there for like 12 days out of 20.
Yeah,
and so it was like, you know, like the one like I would like to not be here. Like I would like to not be here. So much so, here's how much I was there during that time. I got to know the elevator guy.
Oh, no.
Like, I mean, we see him all the time, but, like, we got to know, like, he got to know me on a first-name basis. Like oh, hey, personal. Paul. Like, hey, good to see you, man. All right, we'll see you. I'll be back for a high school game, and I'll be back for a college game, and then I'll be back for the Cowboys. All right, good deal. Hey, Paul, how's it going? And, like, other people like, you know the elevator guy? I'm like, Jim, yeah, hell of a guy.
Bring him Christmas cards.
Yeah, I knew him so well that when I took my dad there, I went on the media elevator without having a media pass because I was like, hey, my dad needs to get up, and we don't want to wait, you know, for the thing, the other elevators. And he's like, yeah, come on, man.
Oh, so yeah, so the work paid off.
Yeah, like, come on, buddy.
There we go.
Get on in.
That's awesome.
You're okay with me. Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, when we come back, our preview series continues on a review series of PFS evaluations. Garrett and I jump into the SEC wide receivers. Number one is not a surprise. The rest of the list, though, Garrett, I've got a little suspect. I've got some issues with it. I've got some issues with it overall. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financials, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. Top 5 on the way shortly. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross. And so minimum 250 snaps, Pro Football Focus, highest graded returning SEC wide receivers. Now, number one, this is a no-doubter.
No.
In fact, I think he's only got the score that he has that's lower than I thought it would be because he's not over 6 feet tall.
I would think that's fair.
I think
would
that's
agree with
probably why. But Luther Burden is a game changer. And I promise you, I would be willing to bet of the top 10 tampered with players, he was up there.
Yeah, him, Evan Stewart, you would have been going after him. Yeah.
Like those guys, like I promise you, like the friend of the coach or whoever was just like, hey, I know that you guys had a great season in Columbia, but you know where's great? Texas, or whatever. I'm not like specifically making accusations there. I'm just saying
Texas likes to go and get receivers.
But,
they do.
We don't I honestly would not be surprised. Like, if he was maybe the top one because of all the different things that he does and the versatility he brings to an offense. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if my school did it. Like, they've kind of been accused of that.
They got a track record.
So, I don't think there's a lot of the power schools that don't. Like, there can be coaches that say that I don't do that.
You got somebody doing it.
But nobody's going out there and saying that we don't do that at all because you have no idea, especially if one of these works out for you and you'll be like, how did you get that guy? And you'll be like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't need to know. You don't need to know. You don't need to know. Like, the less you know, the better. He's here. Nobody's going to say anything about it. It just is what it is. But, there's a guy on the staff who I promise you does not have the qualms about that.
No.
At all. Which is why you don't hear a lot of people being directly called out. Which is why when the Utah State thing happened, not Utah State, Southern Utah happened, and their coach got hit for tampering, I was like, well.
Really?
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But Luther Burden, I would promise you, was tampered with. Like Jordan Addison was tampered with.
Yes.
Absolutely. But he's number one. No doubt about that. Trey Harris at number 2. Okay. Like, I can kind of buy that. That team, is going to put up a lot of points. He's got good measurables. CJ Daniels had a great year where he was a year ago and now
Liberty.
comes into LSU at Liberty. But then I kind of get lost in the fog here with the rest of them.
Yeah, when I'm looking at this, well, for me, first thing I noticed was where's Kyron Lacey? Like, you would think if an LSU receiver would be put on this list, it would be Kyron Lacey who's going to be there. He's going to be your top returning receiver this year. He's the next in the next lineage of players coming out, and he's shown that he could prove it. Whereas if you look at Daniels, while the numbers he put up at Liberty were ridiculous, when they played an actual opponent, that whole team was shut down. Like, they couldn't do anything. So I need to see him do it. And then kind of looking at this, like, you're telling me nobody from Texas? Like, Texas has no receiver that would make this list?
Isaiah
Bond?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That kind of is concerning. For Andrew Anthony to be on here at Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure there's another receiver at Oklahoma that's better than that. I have a lot of questions about once you get past, honestly, Harris. Once you get past there, I have some questions. Like Eugene Wilson, okay, Florida. I know this is about players, but for these people to have the success, it's going to take a team effort. And I don't know anybody at Florida, especially if they're having 2 receivers on here, are going to have a breakout season at all this year.
Yeah. Juice Wells is not on it because he played just 3 games last year for South Carolina. But
dude, I would put Theo Weiss above some of these people.
Yeah. Isaiah Bond, we mentioned him. I'm just looking around at some of the other guys that you would think would be on there, and it's surprising to me. Where they went on this, and look, Jabray Barber had a great year last year before he transferred in to A&M, and that's great. But Also, A&M's got a couple good wide receivers that are coming back, you know. If I could tell you anything about Jared Brown and Trent Hudson and Gage Lavardian, like I really can't. You know, like I know I know them, but like I would not put them over the list. And Elijah Badger transfers into Florida from Arizona State. And so we'll see. The last transfer worked out well for them and Ricky Pearsall. I mean, he was kind of one of the only things they really had going.
He was so good.
Yeah, that they really had going. I think he's going to be you've probably heard me on the top 5s talk about that. But, yeah, not to have Isaiah Bond on this list
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, who, especially down the stretch last year at Alabama, was such a huge reason why they were able to kind of break out of their, like, just offensive funk that they were in. He and Milroe were so good together. And, look, he and Ewers, I think, are going to be good together.
Yeah.
But – I know that like a couple of the guys at Texas don't have that like level of probably 250 snaps from a year ago, but Isaiah Bond, I would think, would have 250
I would think
snaps.
at this point, Isaiah Bond has 250 snaps. Trying to think of other people in the SEC. Like Arkansas doesn't really have a breakout receiver. Let's see.
Yeah. Auburn doesn't. Georgia's got a couple guys who I'm curious about for sure. But Texas, like Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, did he not play 250 snaps? He was injured.
He was injured. He got injured like the third game of the year, I think, for Houston and missed.
Silas Bolden,
he would have. I would think he has 250 snaps.
Yeah, I would think so too, given how good he was. But yeah, I would. I mean, Theo Weiss needs to be on this list. Deion Burks, that's at Oklahoma now, that transferred in from Purdue, needs to be on this list to me. I don't know about Ray Thomas, Dominic Lovett are the starters. At Georgia, Colby Young transferred in from Miami. We'll see.
Right.
On those. I mean, here's what I say we'll see. They'll be great. They'll be fine. They'll make lots of plays. Last year, Georgia just had some guys that caught most of the passes that maybe overshadowed them. Like when you've got if Ladd McConkey's playing in a game, he's going to catch 11 passes. But just kind of how it is. And, Tennessee's got a bunch of new ones. Brew McCoy's their most experienced one coming back, but I'm not surprised that he's not on that list. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a name. I mean, he can make some catches, but his whole catalog hasn't put up enough stats to be on here.
But for A&M, Jabre Barber's like their 4th wide receiver right now behind Jade Walker, Noah Thomas, and Moose Muhammad.
Yeah, I mean, Moose, that's what.
I mean, they're probably hurt overall by their really stupid offense that they had. Like probably hurt over that.
That's the whole reason Stewart left. Evan Stewart's because of that offense.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just weird to me to see and again, I would put Moose Muhammad on this list over Jabre Barber. Personally, not to say that he doesn't belong on the list, but it is surprising to me to see, how they grade him and where they put these guys. And, maybe those guys didn't have the snaps that I'm thinking of, but even then, Isaiah Bond not being on the list.
He's got to be on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. He was such a difference maker last year for Alabama, and it took them a minute to kind of get out of their own way. But once they did, they did. And, everybody, we kept thinking there's going to be another shoot-a drop after that Texas game, and they just fought. They didn't lose until the end.
Nope.
I mean, they didn't lose until the end. They just kept going and going and going and figuring it out, and almost won one for Saban on the way out the door. So, and Isaiah Bond was a huge part of that. To not, let me look back. Let me look at here's the other thing. I know that they're full of transfers, but there's probably one on their roster too that I would think might belong. No, not yet. They're pretty new at that position, or guys stepping up. So, yeah. Yeah. So, no, I think it's probably right for them not to have one on the list for the first time in God knows how long that they wouldn't have been on this list, because that's been wide receiver for a minute. When we come back, the top 5 best college football fight songs. Fight about it in the chat. That's next. This is 365 Sports.
It's the season to rev up your drive with Alan Samuels with the new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Your ultimate destination for unbeatable deals and top-notch service. Looking for a reliable ride to conquer these beautiful spring days? Look no further. The powerful trucks and sleek sedans are the perfect SUV. We've got the perfect vehicle to match your style and budget. Over 300 new vehicles to choose from. Now's the time to make your move. Enjoy special discounts, low financing rates, and incredible incentives. But hurry, these offers won't last forever. Alan Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Greetings and salutations, good people of 365 Sports. I am Paul Catalina, and this is the Top 5 College Football Fight Songs, brought to you by our good friends at Texas Beef House. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. Please use promo code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off of your first order. All right, Top 5 College Football Fight Songs. Number 5, Notre Dame Victory March. This one is so classic, old school. Again, you can tell it came from the 19-teens or 20s, but it just, when they talk about waking up the echoes and classic college football and friggin' Rudy and Newt Rockne and win one for the Gipper, what is more classic than the Notre Dame Victory March? There's just not. There is nothing more classic than this, except for maybe number 4. Also one from a long time ago. Hail to the victors at Michigan. Man, when they, look, I know you may hate Michigan or hate big-time schools, but hail to the victors. Hall, that song even today slaps. If you put Eminem over Hail to the Victors, it would be a number 1 hit. And he's from Michigan, maybe he'll do it. I don't know. Garrett, is Eminem a Michigan fan or a Michigan State fan, or is he in?
I think he would rep for Michigan. He would definitely hold it
He
down.
would rep for Michigan? Yeah. You could put him over Hail to the Victors. That thing would shoot right to number one. Right to number one right there. So, classic song, Hail to the Victors, and probably one of the songs you think of when you think of what are the best college football fight songs. I probably couldn't do this list without Hail to the Victors. Number 3, Fight On from USC. This one, especially for those of us who grew up playing the video game, this one was kind of iconic on that game as well, especially as USC was in their heyday in the late 90s and early 2000s, winning Heisman Trophy after Heisman Trophy, winning national titles, the Pete Carroll years. You would hear that Fight On, and you would just know that it was time for USC, or they had done something great. I just think of so many greats when I hear this song. I think about Marcus Allen. I think about Reggie Bush. I think about Mike Garrett. I think about Pat Hayden. I think about Matt Leinart. All of those rolling through when you hear that song. It just triggers to me just an immediate sense memory of thinking about USC in 2003, 4, 5, those seasons where they really, really were great. Number 2, the Aggie War Hymn. I have been on site for many an Aggie War Hymn. Now, Jack disagrees with me, but what is our motto here on the top 5? Who cares what Jack thinks? That's the motto. Who cares what Jack thinks? If Jack McKenzie thinks it, I don't care. Hopefully, Jack McKenzie doesn't invent a cure for a disease, because if he does, it's a 50-50 shot. I won't take it because, again, what's the motto? Who cares what Jack thinks? But the Aggie War Hymn, if you have ever been in Kyle Field and they start rocking back and forth and swaying and you hear that hullabaloo going. Now, granted, I'm biased. I grew up with this one. My dad made me put it as his cell phone ring when he was still alive. That was a whole process at first because he heard somebody with it when he was at an A&M game, and then he didn't have the right kind of cell phone. It was a whole thing. But I would hear it. Like sometimes I would walk back home and into his office, and he would just be playing it on an old 45 record that he had since college because he had that much Aggie pride. My Uncle Larry, also a big-time Aggie. Actually, this is kind of what triggered the top 5 today as I talked to him this morning. But Kyle Field rocks when this thing is going on. When you see the band just going, which I think is the best band in college football or non-HBCU college football, because let's face it, that's a different level of awesome of what they do at the HBCUs. But the Aggie War Hymn, being in the stadium when that's played, is something special. And talking about being in the stadium when something's played and it's special, good old Rocky Top. I don't care who you are. This song slaps, man. This song goes. And when Tennessee does something well, when they're singing at the end of a win, I mean, I can think of Peyton Manning, standing out in front of the band, directing Rocky Top. It's just amazing when they do it. And they get so loud and so rowdy. And this is the one where, Hail to Victors, Notre Dame Victory March, Fight On, you kind of maybe have to pick those out of a crowd because they can all start to sound similar. This one is just the most unique when it comes to it. When Rocky Top comes on, you won't have to, if it was an instrumental version and no words, you would never have to be like, oh, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? You would know it's Rocky Top. It's the singular best college fight song there is. You can't deny it. And look at these people, how much fun they're having. And this is a dadgum baseball game. This isn't even at a football game, this little picture I got here. But they love it. I don't know how many people probably have the lyrics to Rocky Top tattooed on their back. That's how much they love it up there at Tennessee. Well, that's going to do it for the top 5. And since I'm flying solo today, that's going to do it for the entire show. We're back tomorrow. I will have guest co-host Josh Neighbors for the full 3 hours with me tomorrow, so that should be fun with Josh. We'll have more guests. And don't forget about 365 Sports Tonight on the local CW here at 10:30. We'll have great stuff from the show today on that. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your week, and I'll be back again tomorrow.